Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Thank you for having me for today's workshop. As you know, my name is Bilal Khan, and I'll be giving presentation for 4 standards today. We will start with IFRS 15, which is a very comprehensive and detailed standard, and which deals with the revenue. So I'll be doing presentation a bit differently, not with the PowerPoint presentations. Either I will write everything here and we'll do all the presentation directly. So IFRS 15 की ज़रूरत क्यों पड़ी and what's the history behind that? Actually जो IS 18 था या IS 11 था कंस्ट्रक्शन कॉन्ट्रैक्ट्स का, वो नॉर्मली डील करता था इंडिविजुअल प्रोडक्ट्स एंड सर्विसेज से. लेकिन जब भी कंपनीज व्हेनेवर दे यूज्ड टू ऑफर अ पैकेज डील जिसमें मल्टीपल प्रोडक्ट्स या सर्विसेज होती थी, तो वहां पे अकाउंटिंग ट्रीटमेंट्स का डिफरेंस आ जाता था, बिकॉज उसकी कोई एग्जैक्ट गाइडेंस अवेलेबल नहीं थी स्टैंडर्ड्स पे. फॉर एग्जांपल के अगर एक कंपनी if Ufone offers a package that if you buy a SIM for 3 years and you will use it for 3 years, we will give you a free mobile. So how to treat the revenue coming from that sale of SIM, and what to do with the mobile which you are giving free? Some companies were charging it as a marketing expense. Someone was charging, making a disclosure that it's a free gift. And someone were allocating the price between a SIM and mobile. So different practices were there. इसी तरह जब चीज़ों की इंस्टॉलेशन आती है कि मशीन अगर आपने कस्टमर को बेची है और साथ इंस्टॉलेशन सर्विसेज दी हैं और आप कहते हैं जी इंस्टॉलेशन तो हम फ्री कर देंगे, तो क्लाइंट कौन सा है, क्लाइंट से जो रेवेन्यू आ रहा है आप उसको उस मशीन की रेवेन्यू सारा शो कर देते हैं, आप इंस्टॉलेशन को एलोकेट कर सकते हैं. तो वो प्रैक्टिसेस वेरी कर रही थी. तो उसके लिए एक कॉम्प्रिहेंसिव डिटेल्ड मॉडल की जरूरत थी कि व्हाट शुड बी द गाइडलाइन सो दैट एवरीबडी शुड बी ऑन सेम पेज एंड दे शुड बी ट्रीटिंग द एंड रिकॉर्डिंग द रेवेन्यू इन द सेम वे फॉर ऑल द फ्रॉम ऑल द कॉन्ट्रैक्ट्स. सो IFRS 15 ने क्या किया कि इसने इंट्रोड्यूस करवाया एक 5 स्टेप मॉडल. इस 5 स्टेप मॉडल में पहले हम देखेंगे कि वो 5 स्टेप्स क्या हैं. पहला स्टेप था इसमें कि जो कॉन्ट्रैक्ट्स हैं उनको आइडेंटिफाई कर लें. आइडेंटिफाई द कॉन्ट्रैक्ट. पहले हमें ये पता हो कि हमारे पास कितने कॉन्ट्रैक्ट्स हैं जिसकी हमने रेवेन्यू रिकग्निशन करनी है. सेकंड स्टेप ये था कि जब आप कॉन्ट्रैक्ट्स रिकग्नाइज कर लें, आइडेंटिफाई कर लें कि जी कितने रेवेन्यू कॉन्ट्रैक्ट्स हमारे पास हैं, फिर उन कॉन्ट्रैक्ट्स में गुड्स एंड सर्विसेज हम कौन कौन सी ऑफर कर रहे हैं. तो गुड्स और सर्विसेज के लिए जो स्टैंडर्ड ने टर्म यूज की है वो परफॉर्मेंस ऑब्लिगेशन है, जिसको इन शॉर्ट हम पीओ कह सकते हैं. सो परफॉर्मेंस ऑब्लिगेशन जो सा है, तो परफॉर्मेंस ऑब्लिगेशन बुनियादी तौर पर गुड्स और सर्विसेज को नाम दिया गया जो आप किसी भी कॉन्ट्रैक्ट के तहत अपने कस्टमर्स को ऑफर कर रहे होते हैं. उसके बाद जो स्टेप 3 है, इट टॉक्स अबाउट के ट्रांजैक्शन प्राइस, कि इस कॉन्ट्रैक्ट की प्राइस क्या है. और यहाँ पे एक चीज आपने ज़हन में रखनी है कि व्हेन वी आर टॉकिंग अबाउट ट्रांजैक्शन प्राइस, वी आर टॉकिंग अबाउट टोटल ट्रांजैक्शन प्राइस. फॉर एग्जाम्पल हम कह रहे हैं कि जी एक सिम जो सी है वो आपने 3 साल यूज करनी है एंड यू विल बी पेइंग 3000 पर मंथ, देन द ट्रांजैक्शन प्राइस वुड बी 3000 into 36 months, not 3000. Okay, so that would be the transaction price. Then if you have multiple performance obligations or goods or services in a contract, how to allocate that transaction price among them. अब जिस 2 से 3 या 4-5 गुड्स या सर्विसेज हैं उस कॉन्ट्रैक्ट के अंदर, तो हमने इस ट्रांजैक्शन प्राइस को उसमें एलोकेट कैसे करना है. तो एलोकेशन इज द 4th स्टेप, एंड देन द लास्ट स्टेप इज रेवेन्यू रिकॉग्निशन, कि हमने रेवेन्यू किस तरह रिकॉग्नाइज करना है. और इसमें 2 ही चीजें हैं, ओवर टाइम और एट ए पॉइंट इन टाइम. ये दो चीजें इसमें आती हैं. नाउ वी विल स्टार्ट विथ स्टेप 1 in detail. Identify the contract. Contract, we all know contracts could be verbal or in writing. बिजनेस नॉर्म्स होते हैं. अगर आप किसी अप्लायंसेस की दुकान पे जाते हैं और आप एक फ्रिज सेलेक्ट करते हैं और आप उसे कहते हैं कि मुझे एक फ्रिज ये पसंद आया, ये आप दे दे. ऑब्वियसली यू वॉन्ट बी साइनिंग एनी कॉन्ट्रैक्ट, यू विल सिंपली गेट एन इनवाइस. वो आपको इनवाइस देगा, आप उस इनवाइस को देख के उस पे पेमेंट करेंगे, वो पेड की स्टैंप लगाएगा. बोथ आर ओके. उस पर टर्म्स लिखी होंगी कि अगर इसमें कोई डिफेक्ट होगा तो 15 या 30 दिन के अंदर आप वापस कर सकते हैं, थिंग्स लाइक दैट. सो कॉन्ट्रैक्ट को आइडेंटिफाई करना इतना इशू नहीं है कि यस देयर आर कस्टमर्स विद विच वी हैव कॉन्ट्रैक्ट्स. अब वो जो कॉन्ट्रैक्ट्स हैं आइडेंटिफाई करना इतना आसान होता तो फिर स्टैंडर्ड की जरूरत ना होती. स्टेप 1 में वो कहता है कि कॉन्ट्रैक्ट्स सिर्फ वही आइडेंटिफाई होंगे जिनमें कंसिडरेशन की कलेक्टिबिलिटी प्रोबेबल हो. मतलब जो कंसिडरेशन आपको प्राइस मिलनी है कस्टमर से वो प्रोबेबल हो, मोर देन 50% चांस हो कि वो आपको मिल जाएगी. और उसमें इंपॉर्टेंट चीज क्या आ गई कि प्रोबेबल कलेक्टिबिलिटी. तो अब टाइप कर करके जरा राइटिंग डॉक्टरों जैसी हो गई है. तो प्रोबेबल कलेक्टिबिलिटी मीन्स के आपको पता हो कि आपको पैसे मिल जाएंगे. अगेन ट्रांजैक्शन प्राइस के लिए पैसे कितने मिलेंगे. फॉर एग्जांपल एक हॉस्पिटल है, उसकी इमरजेंसी फीस 10,000 है. एक पेशेंट आता है इमरजेंसी में, एक्सीडेंट की सूरत में लोग उसे लेकर आते हैं, एडमिट कराते हैं, वो उसका ट्रीटमेंट करते हैं प्रोटोकॉल के मुताबिक. जब वो बंदा ठीक होता है, होश में आता है, तो उनको पता चलता है कि ही कांट अफोर्ड 10,000, ही कैन पे ओनली 5,000. तो आपकी प्रोबेबल कलेक्टिबिलिटी कितनी है? 5,000. तो स्टैंडर्ड ये कहता है कि ये जो प्रोबेबल कलेक्टिबिलिटी है इट इज टोटली डिपेंडेंट ऑन द ability and intention of the customer. You have to assess the intention and ability of your customer कि भाई उसका इरादा भी है पे करने का कि नहीं. Am I clear? Suppose आपको एक कंस्ट्रक्शन का कॉन्ट्रैक्ट मिला. अब आपको कंस्ट्रक्शन का कॉन्ट्रैक्ट मिला और आपके कस्टमर ने आपको 1 मिलियन की एडवांस पेमेंट कर दी. अब उसने आपको एडवांस पेमेंट की और वो कंस्ट्रक्शन करवा रहा है आपसे एक होटल की. अब आप हैं तो कॉन्ट्रैक्टर, अब आप उसकी इंटेंशन और एबिलिटी जानना चाहते हैं, तो आप देखते हैं कि आपका जो कस्टमर है उसका होटलिंग का कोई एक्सपीरियंस नहीं है, ठीक है. और आप देख रहे हैं कि जिस इलाके में वो होटल बनवाना चाह रहा है वो भी कोई फिजिबल लोकेशन नहीं है, बिकॉज यू आर अ बिल्डर और आप उसको जानते हैं एरिया को. तो यू आर असेसिंग द सर्कमस्टांसेस. आपको एबिलिटी पता चल रही है कि यार कस्टमर का तो कोई बैकग्राउंड भी नहीं है होटल चलाने का, ये तो होटल भी ऐसी जगह पे बनाने जा रहा है जहां पे शायद इसको कस्टमर बेस भी ना मिले. और फिर अगर आपको कहीं से पता चले कि यार उसके पास तो सोर्स ऑफ इनकम भी कोई ऑथेंटिक नहीं है मार्केट से, तो ऑब्वियसली आप जो उसकी कलेक्टिबिलिटी है उसके बारे में डाउटफुल हो जाएंगे. तो फिर आपने उसको असेस करना है कि भाई क्या उससे जो पैसे बाकी के मेरे आने हैं 10 मिलियन वो आएंगे भी कि नहीं. सो दिस इज वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट कि आपने इंश्योर करना है कि कॉन्ट्रैक्ट कौन सा आइडेंटिफाई करना है जिसमें कंसिडरेशन की कलेक्टिबिलिटी प्रोबेबल हो. और वो कलेक्टिबिलिटी किस पे बेस कर रही है? इंटेंशन एंड एबिलिटी ऑफ द कस्टमर विच यू हैव टू रीअसेस whenever conditions changes, otherwise नहीं. अगर आपने at inception at the time of contract assess किया, उसके बाद अगर आपके पास कोई न्यू इंफॉर्मेशन आती है तब आप रीअसेस करें. अदरवाइज स्टैंडर्ड कहता है कि बार बार उठ के एक्सरसाइज ना करें, ठीक है, टाइम जाया ना करें, बिकॉज ऑब्वियसली इस चीज में एफर्ट इन्वॉल्व होती है. फिर जब आपने कॉन्ट्रैक्ट को जो सा है आइडेंटिफाई कर लिया, तो फिर इसमें 2 सिनेरियोज आगे और आ जाते हैं कि वो तो कॉन्ट्रैक्ट हो गया जिसमें कंसिडरेशन प्रोबेबल है, लेकिन जहां पे कंसिडरेशन प्रोबेबल नहीं है वहां पे क्या करें. स्टैंडर्ड कहता है कि अगर आपके पास एक ऐसा कॉन्ट्रैक्ट है जिसमें बायर और सेलर दोनों में से किसी भी एक के पास यूनिलेटरल राइट टू टर्मिनेट है कॉन्ट्रैक्ट, यूनिलेटरल राइट टू टर्मिनेट, के वो एक तरफा फैसला कर ले कि भाई आई एम गोना टर्मिनेट दिस कॉन्ट्रैक्ट, मुझे आपकी परवाह नहीं, मैं इसको खत्म कर रहा हूं। बट द क्वेश्चन कम्स कि भाई ये क्या बात हुई कि यूनिलेटरली राइट टू टर्मिनेट है तो ये कॉन्ट्रैक्ट कॉन्ट्रैक्ट नहीं है। स्टैंडर्ड ये कहता है कि ये कॉन्ट्रैक्ट तब कॉन्ट्रैक्ट नहीं है अगर वो होली अनपरफॉर्म्ड हो। क्या हो? होली अनपरफॉर्म्ड, एक ऐसा कॉन्ट्रैक्ट जिसमें किसी भी पार्टी ने अपने पार्ट पे ना कोई कंसिडरेशन पे की हो, ना कोई गुड्स और सर्विसेज अभी तक डिलीवर हुई हो, ऐसा कॉन्ट्रैक्ट जिसमें जीरो परफॉर्मेंस हो और उसके अंदर यूनिलैटरल राइट ऑफ टर्मिनेशन गिवन है, तो उस कॉन्ट्रैक्ट को आपने तब तक कॉन्ट्रैक्ट कंसिडर नहीं करना जब तक उसमें कोई परफॉर्मेंस नहीं हो जाती। एम आई क्लियर? दिस इज वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट। फिर इसमें यह चीज भी है कि जो आपके पास कॉन्ट्रैक्ट है, अगर उसमें आपने कोई एडवांस पकड़ा है और वो एडवांस आपने पकड़ा और वो नॉन रिफंडेबल है, तो उसका क्या करना है? तो अगर आपने कॉन्ट्रैक्ट टर्मिनेट कर दिया और आपने कोई फर्दर परफॉर्मेंस ऑब्लिगेशन नहीं करनी, तो आप उस नॉन रिफंडेबल एडवांस को रेवेन्यू में ले जाएंगे। एम आई क्लियर? तो आपने कस्टमर से नॉर्मली मोबिलाइजेशन एडवांसेस पकड़े होते हैं या वैसे एडवांस लिया होता है, तो यू कैन नॉट रिकॉग्नाइज देम एज रेवेन्यू टिल द टाइम यू डोंट हैव टू परफॉर्म एनी फर्दर परफॉर्मेंस अगेंस्ट द कॉन्ट्रैक्ट। अब अंडर द कॉन्ट्रैक्ट, अब उसमें कोई भी गुड्स और सर्विसेज आपने प्रोवाइड अगर नहीं करनी, देन आप उस नॉन रिफंडेबल डिपॉजिट को रेवेन्यू में लेकर जा सकते हैं। आर वी ऑल क्लियर जी? जी देखिए, जो नॉन रिफंडेबल फीस है ना, जब तक तो कॉन्ट्रैक्ट चल रहा है तब तक वो आपके पास पड़ी रहेंगी डिपॉजिट्स में, बिकॉज ऑब्वियसली उसमें एक क्लॉज ऐसी भी होती है कि अगर वो नॉन पेमेंट करेगा तो वो आप उसकी फी के अगेंस्ट एडजस्ट कर लेंगे। हम यहाँ पे बात कर रहे हैं कि स्टैंडर्ड ने क्लियरली कहा है कि ऐसा एडवांस जिसका कॉन्ट्रैक्ट टर्मिनेट हो जाए या जिसके अगेंस्ट आपने फर्दर कोई गुड्स और सर्विसेज नहीं देनी, तब आप खुशी से उस अपफ्रंट फी को रेवेन्यू में ले जाए। लेकिन अगर वो कॉन्ट्रैक्ट ऑन गोइंग है, टर्मिनेट नहीं हुआ, तो आप उसको रेवेन्यू में नहीं लेके जा सकते। नहीं नहीं, देखें, वो जो आपको डिपॉजिट दिया जाता है उसकी बेस पे जब आपको मेंबरशिप मिलती है तो उस मेंबरशिप में आपको डिस्काउंट्स मिलते हैं। तो बेसिकली दे आर इंटरकनेक्टेड। तो ये आपने याद रखना है कि जो कॉन्ट्रैक्ट्स हैं, अभी मैं उस तरफ आता हूं आगे, यहाँ पे कंबिनेशन ऑफ कॉन्ट्रैक्ट्स की बात होती है। हमने एक कॉन्ट्रैक्ट की दूसरे कॉन्ट्रैक्ट से कंबिनेशन, जब आप मेंबरशिप लेते हैं तो वो आपको बताते हैं कि जब आप मेंबरशिप ले लेंगे और आप हमें इतना अपफ्रंट एडवांस दे देंगे तो यू विल बी एलिजिबल टू ऑल दीज प्रिविलेजेस जो एक नॉन मेंबर को नहीं मिलेंगी। क्लियर? तो बिकॉज उसकी टर्म्स आपस में इंटरडिपेंडेंट हैं, तो इस वजह से आप ये नहीं कह सकते कि मैं उसको रेवेन्यू में ले जाऊं। क्लियर? वो तभी होगा, वो उसका डिसीजन तब होगा जब वो टर्मिनेट होगा, या आप कहेंगे कि भाई मुझे अब आपकी मेंबरशिप नहीं चाहिए, मैं जा रहा हूं, आई एम क्विटिंग। क्लियर? तो वो कहेंगे जी सॉरी, हम तो आपको वापस नहीं देंगे। दैट्स इट। ठीक है? लेकिन ऑन गोइंग आप क्योंकि वो डिस्काउंट्स, बेनिफिट्स, प्रिविलेजेस एंजॉय कर रहे हैं, तो वो बिस उस डिपॉजिट की वजह से है जो उन्होंने लमसम आपसे लिया था। क्लियर? अच्छा, इसके बाद जो है आगे हम चलते हैं और इसमें अगली चीज आती है यूनिलैटरल के बाद कॉम्बिनेशन। जब हम कॉम्बिनेशन की बात करते हैं तो कॉम्बिनेशन में स्टैंडर्ड कहता है कि अगर सेम कस्टमर या रिलेटेड पार्टी टू द सेम कस्टमर से सेम टाइम पे या आगे पीछे नियर टाइम में आप मल्टीपल कॉन्ट्रैक्ट्स करें, और उन कॉन्ट्रैक्ट्स में अब जो मैं 3 कंडीशंस बताऊंगा, कोई भी एक क्राइटेरिया या कंडीशन मीट होती हो तो आप उन कॉन्ट्रैक्ट्स को कंबाइन कर सकते हैं। लेकिन रिमेंबर, पहले मैंने क्या कहा, कंबाइन करने के लिए सेम टाइम का होना और सेम कस्टमर का होना जरूरी है। ये नहीं कि मल्टीपल कस्टमर्स को पकड़ के कंबाइन कर दें, नहीं। यू हैव टू मेक श्योर द कस्टमर शुड बी सेम एंड टाइम शुड बी सेम और नियर टू ईच अदर। मतलब 3-4 दिन, 5 दिन, हफ्ता, 10 दिन ऊपर नीचे हो, दैट्स ओके, बट इट डजेंट मीन कि जी साल बाद को मुआहिदा हो रहा तो लेट्स मैं इसको कंबाइन कर दूं, नहीं। फिर वो 3 कंडीशंस क्या हैं? वो 3 कंडीशंस ये हैं, नंबर 1 कि वो जो कॉन्ट्रैक्ट्स हैं वो एज ए पैकेज निगोशिएट किए गए हों, एज ए पैकेज निगोशिएट किए गए हों। मिसाल के तौर पे आपने एक कस्टमर आता है और वो कहता है कि जनाब मैंने आपसे एक हॉस्पिटल की बिल्डिंग बनवानी है। आप कहते हैं ओके। वो कहता है जी इसमें जो कंस्ट्रक्शन का काम है, आर्किटेक्चरल वर्क है, इंजीनियरिंग वर्क है, साइट क्लियरेंस वर्क है, फिनिशिंग वर्क है, इन सब के मुझे अलग अलग टेंडर्स चाहिए, ठीक है, लेकिन मैं आपसे निगोशिएट ये कलेक्टिवली करूंगा। तो जो ठेकेदार मुझे वारा खाएगा, ठीक है, बिकॉज ही वांट्स टू नो कि जनाब इंजीनियरिंग के काम के कौन कितने चार्ज करता है, आर्किटेक्चरल सर्विसेज के कितने चार्ज करता है, ग्रे स्ट्रक्चर बनाने के कितने करता है, फिनिशिंग के कितने करता है। इस तरह उसके पास इंफॉर्मेशन भी आज बेहतर आ जाती है, क्योंकि ऑब्वियसली अगर आप 5 कॉन्ट्रैक्ट्स देंगे तो कस्टमर को क्या फायदा है कि 5 बिड्स आई हैं आपकी तरफ से, 5 किसी, कहीं ना कहीं आप किसी से ऊपर होंगे, कहीं नीचे होंगे दूसरे बिडर से। तो कस्टमर के पास वो इंफॉर्मेशन आती है, उसकी बेस पे वो आपसे पैकेज निगोशिएट कर लेता है। तो जब जो कॉन्ट्रैक्ट्स एज ए पैकेज निगोशिएट किए जाएं, और याद रखें कि उस पैकेज निगोशिएशन का नहीं, उस पैकेज निगोशिएशन फॉर सिंगल आउटकम या ऑब्जेक्टिव, मतलब उसका जो आउटपुट होगा वो सेम होगा। हॉस्पिटल, मिसाल के तौर पे ये भी हो सकता है कि आप कहें कि जनाब ये मेरा प्लॉट है, इसकी बाउंड्री वॉल बनानी है, तो मुझे ईंटों का ठेका भी देना है और लेबर का ठेका भी देना है। तो आप दोनों का ठेका दे दें कि ईंटें कितने पे देंगे, और ये इन्हीं ईंटों को यूज करके और रेत बजरी वगैरह यूज करके, रेत और सीमेंट यूज करके, तो लेबर चार्जेस डाल के कितने में मुझे दीवार बना के देंगे। तो व्हाट्स द ऑब्जेक्टिव? बाउंड्री वॉल। तो उसमें आपने देखा कि 2 कॉन्ट्रैक्ट्स हैं कि ईंटें और बाउंड्री वॉल की कंस्ट्रक्शन, लेकिन वो क्या है, वो एज ए पैकेज है, उसका कमर्शियल आउटकम सेम है। दूसरी चीज इसमें क्या है कि पहला हो गया कि उसका पैकेज होना चाहिए, दूसरा ये कि वो सारे कॉन्ट्रैक्ट का सिंगल आउटकम होना चाहिए, और तीसरा ये कि उनका जो कंसिडरेशन है वो नॉर्मली इंटरडिपेंडेंट होता है। अब इंटरडिपेंडेंट, ये यहाँ पे मैं वही मिसाल दे देता हूँ कि जहाँ पे मोबाइल कंपनी इज ऑफरिंग अ 3 years कॉन्ट्रैक्ट फॉर ए सिम, कि अगर आप ये 3 साल का सिम का कॉन्ट्रैक्ट पोस्टपेड का हमसे साइन करते हैं, वी विल गिव यू अ फ्री मोबाइल। अब मोबाइल का जो रेवेन्यू है और सिम का रेवेन्यू आपस में इंटरडिपेंडेंट है। भाई सिम बिकेगी तो मोबाइल बिकेगा ना, साथ जाएगा। तो इसी तरह अगर आप एक हाउसिंग सोसाइटी का टेंडर देते हैं और वहां पे आपने सड़कें भी बनानी है, पार्क्स भी बनाने हैं, कमर्शियल एरिया भी बनाना है, आपने सीवरेज भी बिछानी है, आपने बिजली के खंभे भी लगाने हैं, तो ऑब्वियसली जब आप उस सोसाइटी में पहले डिगिंग करेंगे, सीवरेज बिछाएंगे, तो उसके बाद ही कहीं जाके आप इलेक्ट्रिशियनिंग करेंगे ना, प्लम्बिंग करेंगे, और फिर उस पर सड़कें बनेंगी। तो वो सारे जो प्रोसेसेस हैं, क्योंकि वो एक के बाद होने होते हैं, तो उनकी कंसिडरेशन भी इंटरडिपेंडेंट है। आप ये नहीं कह सकते कि जी वो मैंने मस्जिद बना दी उसके पैसे दे दें। वो कहेगा भाई मस्जिद ना पानी है उसमें, ना बिजली है, ना सीवरेज है, तो ये इस मस्जिद का मैं क्या करूं। तो एक सीक्वेंस जिस तरह होता है, इसी तरह कॉन्ट्रैक्ट्स जब आपस में इंटरडिपेंडेंट हो जाते हैं और वो सेम कस्टमर से हो और सेम टाइम में हो, तो ओनली देन यू कैन कंबाइन देम। एम आई क्लियर? तो ये कॉम्बिनेशन का एक क्राइटेरिया है। इसके बाद जो है जी जी पूछें। नहीं, पैकेज देखिए, मैंने बताया कि या पैकेज की सूरत में निगोशिएट हो या उन मल्टीपल प्रोडक्ट्स, अगर पैकेज पे की सूरत में निगोशिएट नहीं हुआ तो आउटपुट सिंगल होनी चाहिए, ठीक है। या अगर ये दोनों भी नहीं है तो फिर वो जो कॉन्ट्रैक्ट्स हैं वो आपस में इंटरडिपेंडेंट हो। देखिए, आप इसमें वही बात मैं करूंगा कि यू आर जंपिंग अहेड, बिकॉज दिस पॉइंट इज के विच कॉन्ट्रैक्ट शुड बी कंबाइंड। इट्स अ नेक्स्ट थिंग टू सी दैट वेदर देयर इज अ सिंगल परफॉर्मेंस ऑब्लिगेशन और मल्टीपल, ठीक है। मतलब सिंगल आउटपुट होगी वो तो एक सिनेरियो है जिसमें आप कंबाइन कर सकते हैं, लेकिन बाकी जो दो सिनेरियोज हैं उसमें डिस्टिंक्ट प्रोडक्ट्स और सर्विसेज होने के बावजूद भी यू कैन कंबाइन। ओके, अच्छा। इसके बाद जो सबसे इंपॉर्टेंट आता है, जो ऑब्वियसली प्रैक्टिकल लाइफ में भी और स्टूडेंट्स को भी बॉदर करता है, वो है मॉडिफिकेशन का। सो रेवेन्यू में मॉडिफिकेशन कॉन्ट्रैक्ट में जब आती है तो स्टैंडर्ड ये कहता है सिंपली कि मॉडिफिकेशन दो तरह की होती है। एक मॉडिफिकेशन होती है जिसकी सूरत में वो मॉडिफिकेशन एक सेपरेट कॉन्ट्रैक्ट ट्रीट होगा, और एक उसके अलावा जो दूसरी तरह की जितनी भी मॉडिफिकेशंस होंगी उसमें नो सेपरेट कॉन्ट्रैक्ट। अब ये क्या बात हुई कि भाई कॉन्ट्रैक्ट में ऐसा क्या चेंज हो जिस चेंज को ही आप सेपरेट कॉन्ट्रैक्ट ट्रीट करें, जबकि आप कह रहे हैं इसके अलावा बाकी सारे जितने भी हैं उनके केस में आपने सेपरेट कॉन्ट्रैक्ट नहीं बनाना। अब स्टैंडर्ड ये कहता है कि अगर आपने ऐसी मॉडिफिकेशन की है कि जिसमें उस कॉन्ट्रैक्ट का स्कोप इंक्रीज हुआ है, स्कोप इंक्रीज हुआ है, लेकिन वो स्कोप किसका इंक्रीज हुआ है? डिस्टिंक्ट गुड्स एंड सर्विसेज का। डिस्टिंक्ट का वर्ड याद रखना है। डिस्टिंक्ट गुड्स और सर्विसेज वो गुड्स और सर्विसेज होती हैं जिनको हम सेपरेटली आइडेंटिफाई कर सकते हैं और जिसका कस्टमर सेपरेटली बेनिफिट ले सकता है। एम आई क्लियर? अब यहां पे एक बड़ी इंपॉर्टेंट पॉइंट है, वो ये है कि सेपरेटली आइडेंटिफाइबल होना जरूरी है। वो तो आसान है, ये जो एसी खड़े हैं यहाँ पे फ्लोर स्टैंडिंग चार, ये डिस्टिंक्ट है भाई, सेपरेटली आइडेंटिफाइबल है, ये इधर है वो उधर है वो उधर है। बट अगर आप कस्टमर को एक एसेट एक प्रोडक्ट दे रहे हैं, हमें कैसे पता चले कि उसको बेनिफिट ले सकता है? अब सपोज आपने एसी बेचा है, वो एसी जब तक इंस्टॉल नहीं होगा क्या वो यूज हो सकता है? नहीं। स्टैंडर्ड ने बहुत खूबसूरती से आगे वर्डिंग लिखी है कि वो बेनिफिट तो ले सकता हो ऑन इट्स ऑन और विद द हेल्प ऑफ रिसोर्सेज ऑलरेडी अवेलेबल टू हिम। अगर उस कस्टमर के पास इंस्टॉलेशन के लिए पहले से कोई बंदे मौजूद हैं या उसने पहले से अरेंजमेंट किया हुआ है जिसकी मदद से वो उसे इंस्टॉल कर लेगा, उसे आपकी जरूरत नहीं है, और वो उस एसेट को एसी को लगा के इंस्टॉल करके चला भी लेगा, तो वो डिस्टिंक्ट है। एम आई क्लियर? एक ऐसी चीज जिसको कस्टमर लेके ना यूज कर सकता है, ना प्रॉफिट पे बेच सकता है, ना कंज्यूम कर सकता है, वो डिस्टिंक्ट नहीं है। तो कोई भी ऐसी प्रोडक्ट या सर्विस जिसको कस्टमर एज इट इज यूज कर सकता हो आपसे लेके, या विद द हेल्प ऑफ रिसोर्सेज अवेलेबल टू हिम वो उसको यूज कर ले। भाई उसके पास गाड़ी थी, उसमें एक पार्ट खराब हो गया, उसकी गाड़ी बंद हो गई, आपने उसको पार्ट बेचा, पार्ट उसने मैकेनिक से वर्कशॉप में लगाया, गाड़ी उसकी स्टार्ट हो गई, तो आप तो उस पार्ट की सेल ही बुक करेंगे ना। क्लियर? हाँ, अगर आप ही की वर्कशॉप है, आप ही पार्ट बेच रहे हैं और आप ही उसको लगा के देंगे, देन ही इज डिपेंडेंट ऑन यू. Then you have to decide कि whatever you are charging, how much will you charge as a revenue from that sale of part and from mechanical services. Make sense? Logical सी बात है. अच्छा, स्कोप, वो कहते हैं कि डिस्टिंक्ट गुड्स और सर्विसेज जौन सी हैं उसका स्कोप इंक्रीज हो, और दूसरी चीज ये कि उस कॉन्ट्रैक्ट की प्राइस भी इंक्रीज हो. स्कोप भी इंक्रीज हो, लेकिन वो स्कोप क्या हो जिसमें गुड्स और सर्विसेज डिस्टिंक्ट हो. प्राइस का जो इंक्रीज है वो भी हो, लेकिन वो जो इंक्रीज है वो स्टैंड अलोन सेलिंग प्राइस की बेसिस पे हो. स्टैंड अलोन सेलिंग प्राइसेस ये हैं कि वो प्राइस जो आप अपने तमाम कस्टमर्स को ऑफर करते हैं. अब इसकी हम सिंपल एक एग्जांपल करते हैं कि मिसाल के तौर पे आपको एक यूनिवर्सिटी ने 100 एसी लगाने का ऑर्डर दिया, आपने वो 100 एसी उसे 1 लाख में डन कर दिए. जीरो मुझे बता देना, मैंने सही डालें कि कम डालें? एक कम है, 10 मिलियन हो गया. अब 100 एसी लगाने का एग्रीमेंट मैंने किया. अब उस मुआहदे के बाद कस्टमर मेरे पास फिर आया और उन्होंने कहा सर हमारा ही नई बिल्डिंग भी बन रही है तो वो भी साथ ही मुकम्मल हो जानी है, तो व्हाट इफ कि मैं आपसे 50 एसी और ले लूं. आप कहते हैं कि ठीक है सर, आप मेरे से 50 एसी लें, वो मैं आपको 80,000 के हिसाब से दे दूंगा. अब आपने उसी 80,000 का रेट क्यों चार्ज किया? क्या ये स्टैंड अलोन सेलिंग प्राइस है? हाउ वुड आई नो कि ये स्टैंड अलोन सेलिंग प्राइस है कि नहीं? अगर ये मेरी स्टैंडर्ड पॉलिसी है कि इफ एनी कस्टमर बायज मोर देन 100 यूनिट्स फ्रॉम मी, आई चार्ज 80,000 फॉर एनी एडिशनल यूनिट ओवर एंड अबव 100, देन इट्स अ स्टैंड अलोन सेलिंग प्राइस. अगर मैं अपने तमाम कस्टमर्स को 100 से ज्यादा यूनिट्स खरीदने पर हर इजाफी यूनिट 80,000 में देता हूं, देन इट्स अ स्टैंड अलोन सेलिंग प्राइस. बट इफ आई थिंक यार यार यूनिवर्सिटी है, इसने तो फैलना है, मिसाल के तौर पे यूएमटी है, मैं कहता हूँ यार वो इब्राहिम साहब जो से हैं वो वजीर भी हैं, मिनिस्टर भी लगे हुए मोहसिन नकवी के, तो वो आजकल तो उनकी एक्सपेंशन वाह हो रही है, अप्रूवल हो रही है, हेल्थ साइंसेज का कैंपस बन रहा है. मैं रियल स्टोरी बता रहा हूँ कि मेरा क्लाइंट फंसा हुआ है सीईओ की डील पे. तो वो, अब उसमें बात क्या है? अब बात ये है कि ही वांट्स टू विन दैट कॉन्फिडेंस कि यार अगर मैं इसको स्पेशल वो प्राइस दे दूं जो इसे मार्केट में कोई नहीं दे सकता, तो ये अपने अगले तमाम कैंपसेस जो पाइपलाइन में उसके एसीओ का टेंडर मुझे देगा. क्लियर? तो अगर मैं अपने तमाम कस्टमर्स को 100 के ऊपर 50 देने पे भी लाख रुपया ही चार्ज करता हूं और 80,000 में सिर्फ स्पेशल प्राइस के तौर पे ऑफर कर रहा हूं, देन इट्स नॉट अ स्टैंड अलोन सेलिंग प्राइस. गॉट द डिफरेंस? ये बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट पॉइंट है, यहां पे आके कंसेप्ट गड़बड़ हो जाते हैं. तो वी नीड टू बी वेरी क्लियर. अगेन यू हैव टू रीअसेस ईच एंड एवरी कॉन्ट्रैक्ट एंड यू नीड टू जज के भाई ये जो प्राइस है ये स्टैंड अलोन सेलिंग प्राइस है कि नहीं. ये जिशान अली का है. अब मुझे ये नहीं पता हाउ वुड आई सी, मैं कैसे देख सकता हूँ क्वेश्चन अगर कोई रेज हैंड कर रहा है जूम पे? आस्क देम टू राइट इट इन द चैट बॉक्स ना, वो पॉपअप कर दिए तो फिर मैं देख सकूंगा. एनीवेज, अब इसमें स्कोप का क्लियर हो गया. अब अगर उसने 100 से 50 एसी ऐड कर दिए, मेरा स्कोप इंक्रीज हो गया. और ये डिस्टिंक्ट गुड है, हर एसी एक दूसरे से फर्क है. मुझे पता है कि जब मैंने उसको 10 एसी दे दिया तो मुझे पता है 10 एसी ये चले गए, 90 पड़े हैं अभी. अगर सिंगल हो फिर तो मैं स्प्लिटिंग नहीं कर सकता ना, सेग्रीगेशन या नहीं कर सकता. और प्राइस भी स्टैंड अलोन सेलिंग है कि जी 80,000 वो सबको ऑफर करता है. अब ये सेपरेट कॉन्ट्रैक्ट है, तो कैसे सेपरेट कॉन्ट्रैक्ट है कि ये जो 100 एसीज का कॉन्ट्रैक्ट है, ओरिजिनल कॉन्ट्रैक्ट ये एज इट इज रहेगा, और ये वाली मॉडिफिकेशन जिसमें स्कोप भी इंक्रीज हुआ और प्राइस भी इंक्रीज हुई, स्टैंड अलोन सेलिंग प्राइस, ये एक सेकंड न्यू कॉन्ट्रैक्ट बना. आर वी ऑल क्लियर? मेक सेंस? अब ये तो हो गया ये वाला सिनेरियो. उसके बाद क्या है, नो सेपरेट वाला, इसको भी हम डिस्कस कर लेते हैं कि इसका मतलब है कि कॉन्ट्रैक्ट में कोई भी ऐसी मॉडिफिकेशन जिसमें डिस्टिंक्ट गुड का स्कोप इंक्रीज ना हो और प्राइस इंक्रीज स्टैंड अलोन बेसिस पे ना हो, उसके अलावा कोई भी इंक्रीज हो, डिक्रीज हो, कुछ भी चेंज हो, वो दूसरी कैटेगरी में जाएगा। एम आई क्लियर? अब यहां पे वो ये कहता है कि आपने ये देखना है कि जो अगर आपकी जो प्रोडक्ट्स हैं वो ये ना इंक्रीज इन स्कोप जो सा है वो डिस्टिंक्ट गुड्स का है, लेकिन प्राइस इंक्रीज जो सा है वो स्टैंड अलोन सेलिंग प्राइस बेसिस पे नहीं है। तो दो चीजें हो जाएंगी। नो सेपरेट कॉन्ट्रैक्ट में भी एक सिनेरियो होगा जिसमें गुड्स डिस्टिंक्ट है और एक सिनेरियो जिसमें नॉट डिस्टिंक्ट है। आर वी ऑल क्लियर? क्योंकि डिस्टिंक्ट के साथ प्राइस का इंक्रीज स्टैंड अलोन सेलिंग प्राइस पे होना मैंडेटरी है, तब वो सेपरेट कॉन्ट्रैक्ट होगा। अब अगर प्रोडक्ट्स और सर्विसेज डिस्टिंक्ट हैं लेकिन प्राइस, अब वो स्कोप इंक्रीज हुआ या डिक्रीज हुआ वट, तो अगर वो डिस्टिंक्ट है तो वो कहता है कि आपने ये ज्यूम करना है कि ये जो कॉन्ट्रैक्ट है एग्जिस्टिंग, ये टर्मिनेट हो गया, आई रिपीट टर्मिनेट हो गया, और एक नया रिवाइज्ड कॉन्ट्रैक्ट वजूद में आ गया। कैसे? आपने 100 एसीओं का एग्रीमेंट किया 1 लाख पे और 10 मिलियन का आपका रेवेन्यू बनता था ट्रांजैक्शन प्राइस। कस्टमर ने कहा कि मैं 50 और लूंगा अगर मुझे कुछ स्पेशल डिस्काउंट मिलेगा। आप कहते हैं यार ठीक है 80,000 स्पेशल डिस्काउंट, बाकी सबको मैं 1 लाख या 90,000 देता हूं। अब ये कितना हुआ? 4 मिलियन। अब हम ये ज्यूम करते हैं कि अभी तक उसने कोई एसी डिलीवर नहीं किया, अगर किए होते तो जितना वो डिलीवर कर चुका है वो रेवेन्यू पिछली की बेस पे जाना था। अब सेपरेट कॉन्ट्रैक्ट नहीं बनना। अब आपने एज्यूम ये करना है भाई मेरे कि ये वाला कॉन्ट्रैक्ट खत्म हो गया, टर्मिनेट हो गया, और एक नया कॉन्ट्रैक्ट बन गया 150 एसीज का जिसकी ट्रांजैक्शन प्राइस है 14 मिलियन, और जब आप उसको एलोकेट करेंगे तो 14 मिलियन डिवाइडेड बाय 150 करके। एम आई क्लियर? मेक सेंस? तो यहां पे गुड्स एंड सर्विसेज डिस्टिंक्ट है, बट जो क्या उसे कहते हैं, जो इंक्रीज है, ये इंक्रीज है, वो आप कह लें कि स्कोप पे इंक्रीज तो है लेकिन प्राइस का इंक्रीज जो है वो स्टैंड अलोन सेलिंग प्राइस की बेसिस पे। इसके अलावा किसी भी किस्म की कोई भी एडजस्टमेंट हो जिसमें डिक्रीज हो या कुछ और हो और वो नॉट डिस्टिंक्ट हो, तो याद रखें कि स्टैंडर्ड उसमें कहता है कि नॉट डिस्टिंक्ट का मतलब क्या है कि प्रोडक्ट से अलहदा नहीं है, सिंगल आउटपुट है, सिंगल परफॉर्मेंस ऑब्लिगेशन है, डिस्टिंक्ट नहीं ना, आप अलहदा नहीं कर सकते। अब इसकी मिसाल सिंपल है, आप एक बिल्डिंग बना रहे हैं, आपका जो टेंडर है वो प्राइस 10 मिलियन एग्रीड है, और वो कहता है कि यार ये 2 साल में बना के देनी है, 10 मिलियन दूंगा। फिर वो 3 महीने बाद आके कहता है यार अगर तुम 1.5 साल में बना दो ना तो मैं तुम्हें 12 मिलियन दूंगा। ठीक है? तो आप उससे एग्री कर लेते हैं, आप कहते हैं ठीक है जनाब बना देते हैं, मैं ज्यादा बंदे लगा देता हूं, मुझे तो पैसे ज्यादा मिल रहे हैं और मेरा तो पेस भी ठीक है, मैं तो आपकी वजह से आराम से चल रहा था। तो अब उसको अगर 2 मिलियन एक्स्ट्रा मिल रहे हैं और वो उसको बनाने जा रहा है 1.5 साल में, तो ये सिंगल है ना, तो वो सिंपल क्या करेगा, वो सिंपल ये करेगा कि अगर फॉर एग्जाम्पल 10 मिलियन में से 50% वो रेवेन्यू ऑलरेडी बुक कर चुका था, कितना बुक किया होगा उसने? 5 मिलियन। एग्री? अब कॉन्ट्रैक्ट की रिवाइज प्राइस क्या हो गई? 12 मिलियन। अब अगर 12 मिलियन प्राइस हो गई उसकी, उसका 50% कितना बनता है? 6 मिलियन। अब फॉर एग्जाम्पल ये 5 मिलियन का रेवेन्यू उसने पिछले साल बुक किया था और बुक सब क्लोज हो चुकी है, बुक सब क्लोज हो चुकी है, तो स्टैंडर्ड कहता है कि अब वो एक एडजस्टमेंट डालेगा वो रेवेन्यू जो वो पिछले साल कम बुक करके आया, बिकॉज ये उसको पता नहीं था। तो मुझे ये बताएं कि ये जो ट्रीटमेंट है कैचअप एडजस्टमेंट का, ये किस स्टैंडर्ड के तहत आ रहा है कि इसको करंट ईयर में चार्ज करना है? नहीं, ये IS 8 के तहत चेंज इन अकाउंटिंग एस्टिमेट। आपने जब पिछले साल कॉन्ट्रैक्ट शुरू किया था उस वक्त ना कस्टमर आपके पास आया कि 1.5 साल में बना दो, ना उसने 2 मिलियन ऑफर किया। आप अपनी धुन में चल रहे थे, आपने आधा प्रोजेक्ट बना दिया, 5 मिलियन बुक कर लिया। साल खत्म होने के बाद अकाउंट्स भी फाइनलाइज हो गए, 2-3 महीने बाद वो आके कहते यार थोड़ा सा रह गया, 1.5 साल में पूरा कर दे, मैं 2 मिलियन एक्स्ट्रा देता हूँ। आप कहते मैं कर देता हूँ। तो जब यू एग्रीड, अब वो क्या अमेंडमेंट आ गई, लेकिन क्योंकि सिंगल है, पिछले साल का रेवेन्यू चेंज नहीं हो सकता, अकाउंट्स क्लोज हो चुके हैं, तो आप इसका इफेक्ट करंट ईयर में लेंगे। इसको स्टैंडर्ड कहता है क्यूमुलेटिव कैचअप एडजस्टमेंट। खाने वाली कैचअप नहीं, पकड़ने वाली कैचअप। ठीक है, तो ये कैचअप एडजस्टमेंट हो गई। क्लियर? अच्छा जी, ये तो ये माइक जरा दे दो, माइक जरा दे देना। जी
हेलो सर।
जी
ओके। मुझे जहाँ पे आपने उसको बताया है कि डिस्टिंक्ट तो है, नॉट सेपरेट में, नॉट सेपरेट में जहाँ पे पोर्शन आ रहा था डिस्टिंक्ट बट नॉट ऑन स्टैंड लोन सेलिंग प्राइसेस,
जी जी।
उसको थोड़ा सा मजीद एक्सप्लेन कर दें। इसमें जहाँ पे आपने बताया कि पिछला टर्मिनेट हो गया
और
कॉन्ट्रैक्ट
एक
और रिवाइज्ड
एक
वाला,
क्या,
वहां से।
व्हाट स्टैंडर्ड सेज के अगर आपकी गुड्स तो डिस्टिंक्ट हैं और आपने जो अमेंडमेंट की है या मॉडिफिकेशन की है कॉन्ट्रैक्ट में, उसमें आपका स्कोप इंक्रीज हुआ है और या डिक्रीज हुआ है, दोनों हो सकते हैं। और प्राइस इंक्रीज हुई है, डिक्रीज भी हो सकती है। इंक्रीज हुई है तो वो स्टैंड लोन सेलिंग प्राइस की बेसिस पे नहीं हुई। अब उसमें आपका ओरिजिनल कॉन्ट्रैक्ट कितने का था? 100 एसीज का विद 100,000 ईच, ऐसे ही है। तो आपका रेवेन्यू 10 मिलियन बनता था। स्टैंडर्ड कहता है कि जब इस तरह की मॉडिफिकेशन हो डिस्टिंक्ट गुड्स की केस में, तो आपने पिछले कॉन्ट्रैक्ट को टर्मिनेट कंसिडर करना है कि ये 10 मिलियन का कॉन्ट्रैक्ट कैंसिल हो गया, टर्मिनेट हो गया, इसके तहत अब मैंने कुछ डिलीवर नहीं करना। अब एक नया कॉन्ट्रैक्ट मैंने कर लिया है कस्टमर से जो 150 एसीज का है और जिसमें 14 मिलियन मेरा रेवेन्यू है। तो मैं 14 मिलियन डिवाइडेड बाय 150 करके पर यूनिट प्राइस निकाल लूंगा, और फिर जो जो मैं एसीज डिलीवर करूंगा आई विल कीप रिकॉग्नाइजिंग माय रेवेन्यू। क्लियर?
या
अब इसी तरह जो नॉन डिस्टिंक्ट में हमने बात की, यहां पे भी पॉइंट क्लियर है कि ये क्योंकि नॉन डिस्टिंक्ट में नॉर्मली क्या होता है, स्टेज ऑफ कंप्लीशन आ जाती है, जो ओवर द पीरियड ऑफ टाइम आप रिकॉग्नाइज कर रहे होते हैं। तो आपने अगर 50% रेवेन्यू बुक किया था एंड दैट वाज 5 मिलियन, और वो उस वक्त ठीक था, बट अब ट्रांजैक्शन प्राइस चेंज हुई तो उसकी वजह से आपने उसको चेंज किया। अच्छा, अब इसके साथ हमारी जो डिस्कशन है फॉर स्टेप 1 इट्स डन। देन वी मूव फॉरवर्ड टुवर्ड्स स्टेप 2। स्टेप 2 में वो कहता है कि जो आपके परफॉर्मेंस ऑब्लिगेशंस है वो आइडेंटिफाई करें। आप परफॉर्मेंस ऑब्लिगेशंस जब आइडेंटिफाई करनी है तो परफॉर्मेंस ऑब्लिगेशन का मतलब है गुड्स एंड सर्विसेज। अब सिंपली वो ये कहता है कि परफॉर्मेंस ऑब्लिगेशंस जब आपने आइडेंटिफाई करने हैं तो आपने ये देखना है कि इसमें कितनी इसमें मल्टीपल प्रोडक्ट्स हैं, मल्टीपल सर्विसेज हैं, या मल्टीपल प्रोडक्ट्स एंड सर्विसेज हैं, या सिंगल प्रोडक्ट या सिंगल सर्विस है। क्लियर? और उसके लिए जो डिस्टिंक्ट की डेफिनेशन या इलेबोरेशन है स्टैंडर्ड में, वो टेक्निकली और बुनियादी तौर पर इस स्टेप में दी गई है। यहां पे उसने बताया कि वो सारी परफॉर्मेंस ऑब्लिगेशंस गुड्स और सर्विसेज जो डिस्टिंक्ट हैं, और डिस्टिंक्ट के लिए उसने सिर्फ 2 क्राइटेरियाज बताए हैं। वो ये है कि पहला तो सिंपल है कि सेपरेटली आइडेंटिफाइबल, कि जिसको आप कह सकें कि हाँ यार ये पड़ी प्रोडक्ट, ये दूसरी प्रोडक्ट है, ये तीसरी प्रोडक्ट है। और दूसरा क्राइटेरिया ये कि कस्टमर उसका बेनिफिट ले सकता हो। बेनिफिट का मतलब ये है कि वो उसे अपनी मर्जी से इस्तेमाल कर सकता हो, कंज्यूम कर सकता हो, और अगर वो उसको बेचना चाहे तो वो उसको स्क्रैप वैल्यू से ज्यादा पे प्रॉफिट पे बेच सकता हो, जिससे वो फायदा ले सकता हो। तो वो कहता है कि ऐसा कोई भी प्रोडक्ट या जो सर्विस है जिसका कस्टमर बेनिफिट अलहदा से ले सकता है, चाहे डायरेक्टली ले सकते हो या उसके पास अपने इन हाउस रिसोर्सेज हो या कहीं से उसने रिसोर्सेज अरेंज किए जिसकी मदद से वो फायदा ले सकता हो, तो वो डिस्टिंक्ट है। और अगर वो ये नहीं है तो वो नॉट डिस्टिंक्ट है। क्लियर? तो स्टेप 2 में हम बेसिकली सिंपल ये देखते हैं कि हमें जो कॉन्ट्रैक्ट आइडेंटिफाई हमने किए स्टेप 1 में, उसमें स्टेप 2 में आके हम देखते हैं कि आया इसमें सिंगल परफॉर्मेंस ऑब्लिगेशन है कि मल्टीपल, दैट्स इट। और उसके लिए एक डिस्टिंक्ट का जो बेसिक क्राइटेरिया है हम उसको देखते हैं। ठीक है? उसके बाद जब हम जाते हैं ट्रांजैक्शन प्राइस की तरफ, तो भाई यहां पे काम जरा लंबा हो जाता है। ट्रांजैक्शन प्राइस क्या है? ट्रांजैक्शन प्राइस में फिक्स प्राइस भी होती है, ठीक है, फिर इसमें वेरिएबल प्राइस भी होती है, फिर इसमें सिग्निफिकेंट फाइनेंसिंग कंपोनेंट भी होता है, फिर इसमें नॉन कैश कंसिडरेशन का फैक्टर है, और आखिरी चीज यह है कि कंसिडरेशन पेएबल टू कस्टमर, कि आप जो उनसे कस्टमर को कुछ पे करें। अब यहां पे मैं इसको एलैबोरेट करता हूं। बुनियादी तौर पर हम समझते हैं कि कॉन्ट्रैक्ट्स की जो ट्रांजैक्शन प्राइस होती है वो फिक्स्ड होती है, लेकिन बाज़-औक़ात उसमें टर्म्स में कुछ ऐसी चीजें होती हैं जो उसकी प्राइस को फिक्स्ड नहीं रहने देती। मिसाल के तौर पे, अगर आपने एक मुआहिदा किया है 10 मिलियन का, एक बिल्डिंग बना के देनी है कस्टमर को 10 मिलियन में 2 साल में, और आप कहते हैं कि हिस्टोरिकली जौन सा है और अगर 2 साल में नहीं बना के दे सकेंगे तो 1 मिलियन की पेनल्टी है। 1 मिलियन की पेनल्टी है। क्या 10 मिलियन का आपका फिक्स्ड रेवेन्यू है? क्या आप कह सकते हैं कि 10 मिलियन आपका फिक्स्ड है? नहीं। उस पेनल्टी की क्लॉज ने 9 मिलियन को फिक्स्ड कर दिया, 1 मिलियन को वेरिएबल कर दिया। एम आई क्लियर? सो अगर किसी भी कॉन्ट्रैक्ट में आप कोई डिस्काउंट देखते हैं, कोई रिफंड देखते हैं, कोई इंसेंटिव देखते हैं, कोई पेनल्टी देखते हैं, कोई कंटिंजेंट पेमेंट देखते हैं कि जी अगर ऐसा हो गया तो मैं आपको फर्दर पेमेंट करूंगा, कस्टमर आपको फर्दर पेमेंट करेगा या लेगा, तो इसका मतलब है कि आपकी ट्रांजैक्शन प्राइस में वेरिएबल मौजूद है और आपने उस वेरिएबल्स को असेस करना है कि वो वेरिएबल कितना वैलिड है। और उसका वही क्राइटेरिया स्टैंडर्ड ने इंटरेस्टिंगली दिया है जो IS 37 में प्रोविजंस के लिए दिया है, कि वो कहता है कि आपने वेरिएबल कंसिडरेशन को डिटरमिन करते हुए मोस्ट लाइकली और एक्सपेक्टेड वैल्यू यानी कि प्रोबेबिलिटी को मद्देनजर रखना है। कैसे? इसको सिंपल मिसाल से डिस्कस कर लेते हैं। मैंने एक कॉन्ट्रैक्ट लिया कस्टमर से, 1 मिलियन का कॉन्ट्रैक्ट है, और कस्टमर कहता है कि जी अगर आपने इसको टाइमली कंप्लीट ना किया तो 1 लाख की पेनल्टी होगी। ठीक है जी, ये उसने एग्री किया। मेरी हिस्ट्री ये है कि 90% केसेस में मैंने ऑन टाइम कंस्ट्रक्शन करके दी है। 90% मीन्स मोस्ट लाइकली। मोस्ट लाइकली तो कितना मैं ट्रांजैक्शन प्राइस बुक करूं? 1 मिलियन, बिकॉज इट इज मोस्ट लाइकली दैट आई विल गेट इट डन इन टाइम, दिस टू। क्लियर? तो मोस्ट लाइकली ये हो गया। इसको वाइस वर्सा कर लेते हैं। मैं कहता हूं कि 40% चांस है कि मैं टाइमली करूंगा, 60% चांस है कि मैं टाइमली नहीं कर सकूंगा। क्लियर? तो हम क्या करते थे IS 37 में? तो इसको आप कैसे कैलकुलेट करेंगे? 9 लाख जौन सा है उसको करने का चांस कितना है? 40%। तो आप वेटिंग निकाल लेंगे ना। तो आप सिंपली इसमें 40% चांस है कि आप मुकम्मल कर लेंगे। तो 1 मिलियन का 40% कितना बनता है? 40% चांस है ना कि कर लूंगा, और 60% चांस है कि नहीं कर सकूंगा, तो 9 लाख मिलेगा। कैलकुलेट कर लें कितना बनता है। हाँ जी, 9 लाख का 60%। 540। 540। तो इसको टोटल कर लें, 9,40,000। सो ये बड़ा इंपॉर्टेंट पॉइंट है कि आपने 9 लाख या 10 लाख नहीं, आपकी ट्रांजैक्शन प्राइस 9,40,000 है। क्लियर? ये मैं नहीं कह रहा, ये स्टैंडर्ड कह रहा है। तो आपने उसकी एक्सपेक्टेड वैल्यू निकालनी है भाई। ठीक हो गया? इसी को मैं आगे लेके चलता हूं। अब वॉलमार्ट तो नाम सारों ने सुना हुआ है, लेकिन अब कैश एंड कैरीज आपको पता है पूरे पंजाब में खुल गई हैं और बड़े सुपर स्टोर्स हैं। ठीक है? तो वहां पे अब सपोज एक सुपर स्टोर है, वो 100 आइटम्स बेच रहा है। अब उसने 100 आइटम्स बेचे हैं और उसकी पॉलिसी है कि 15 डेज के अंदर कस्टमर उसको रसीद के साथ वापस कर सकता है। अब अगर कस्टमर ने असेस किया, आपने असेस किया, सॉरी स्टोर ने, कि जी 15 दिनों में मेरी एक्सपेक्टेशन है कि 100 में से 3 आइटम वापस आ जाएंगे, 100 में से 3 आइटम वापस आ जाएंगे। तो आपको कैश कितना आया? 100 रुपया। सपोज 1 रुपए का आइटम है, सिंप्लिसिटी के लिए। तो आप अपना रेवेन्यू कितना बुक करेंगे? 97। बाकी 3 रुपए का क्या करूं? रिफंड लाइबिलिटी। 3 रुपए की रिफंड लाइबिलिटी खड़ी करूंगा। और अब सवाल ये पैदा होता है कि सर रेवेन्यू पूरा बुक नहीं किया, तो कॉस्ट ऑफ सेल का क्या करेंगे? तो सपोज इसका जो कॉस्ट ऑफ सेल है वो सपोज 80 है। तो इन्वेंट्री तो आपकी पूरी चली गई 80 की, ऐसे ही है। और मैं कहता हूं कि आपका कॉस्ट ऑफ सेल, तो उसका 97% 80 का ले लें, वो इधर आ जाएगा। और बाकी क्या होगा? एक एसेट आप करंट एसेट्स में बनाएंगे, राइट टू प्रोडक्ट। नाम कुछ भी दे सकते हैं, स्टैंडर्ड ने कोई वो किया नहीं हुआ। राइट टू प्रोडक्ट। राइट टू प्रोडक्ट का मतलब क्या है? कि आपका उस प्रोडक्ट पे राइट है कि आप कस्टमर से उसे वापस क्लेम कर सकते हैं। इज दैट क्लियर? भाई अगर वो रिफंड लेने आएगा तो आप कहेंगे मेरी इन्वेंट्री भी तो वापस करो ना। क्लियर? तो आपने ये एसेट बुक करना है। अब एक्चुअली क्या होगा? एक्चुअली ये भी हो सकता है कि तीनों के तीनों प्रोडक्ट्स भी बिक जाएं। तो क्या करेंगे? रिफंड लाइबिलिटी डेबिट हो जाएगी, रेवेन्यू क्रेडिट हो जाएगा। ये भी हो सकता है कि 2 प्रोडक्ट्स वापस आए। तो जब 2 प्रोडक्ट्स वापस आएंगे तो क्या होगा? आप रिफंड लाइबिलिटी रिवर्स करके बाकी रेवेन्यू में और 2 आपकी इन्वेंट्री में चले जाएंगे। और ये भी हो सकता है कि 4 वापस आ जाए। तो फिर आपने वो जो 1 रुपए का एक्स्ट्रा रेवेन्यू बुक किया था, ये भी रिवर्स हो जाएगा। क्लियर? तो ये चीजें इंपॉर्टेंट है वेरिएबल की कंसिडरेशन में। आर वी ऑल क्लियर? तो हमने ये समझा कि कोई भी जो ट्रांजैक्शन प्राइस है उसमें कोई ऐसी टर्म हो सकती है डिस्काउंट। अब डिस्काउंट में ऐसे भी हो सकता है फॉर एग्जांपल, आपने कस्टमर से कहा कि अगर आप साल में 1,000 यूनिट्स खरीदोगे तो मैं आपको 100 रुपए की चीज 90 रुपए में दे दूंगा रेट्रोस्पेक्टिवली। सारी चीजों पे 90 रुपए चार्ज करूंगा। पहले क्वार्टर में कस्टमर ने सिर्फ 75 यूनिट आपसे खरीदे। आप कहते हैं यार 1,000 किधर 75 किधर, इसने नहीं लेने। ठीक है, आप 75 ज़रबे 100 करके रेवेन्यू बुक कर लेते हैं। दूसरे क्वार्टर में कस्टमर इकट्ठा आपसे 500 यूनिट ले लेता है। अब 575 निकल गए, तो अब आप सोच रहे नहीं यार, अगर 575 ले लिए तो 2 क्वार्टर में 1000 तो क्रॉस कर ही जाएगा। सर्कमस्टांसिस चेंज हो गए, तो क्या करना है, अगेन ट्रांजैक्शन को चेंज करना है। वो जो पिछला रेवेन्यू बुक किया था उसकी एडजस्टमेंट करंट रेवेन्यू में डाल के, तो जो 500 यूनिट आपने बेचे तो 50,000 कैश आया, तो वो जो आपने यूनिट्स बेचे अब 500, उनको 90 रुपए के हिसाब से रेवेन्यू में लेके जाना है, क्योंकि अब आपने डिस्काउंट देना है। ठीक हो गया। और डिफरेंशियल जो सा वो जो 750 वाला, तो वो अब आपने अपनी कॉन्ट्रैक्ट लाइबिलिटी खड़ी कर ली कि ये जब अगले वो आइटम्स लेगा तो ये इतने से मैंने उससे पैसे कम लेने हैं, बिकॉज ये अब उसका डिस्काउंट बनता है। एम आई क्लियर? तो ये चीजें आप रीअसेस करते रहते हैं और ये आप चलते रहते हैं इसमें। तो ये डिस्काउंट, इंसेंटिव, पेनल्टी, ये सारी चीजें इस तरह चलती हैं। इसके बाद दूसरा जो इंपॉर्टेंट एरिया है वो है इसमें सिग्निफिकेंट फाइनेंसिंग कंपोनेंट का। सिग्निफिकेंट फाइनेंसिंग कंपोनेंट ये एक थ्योरेटिकल कंसेप्ट है, ये एक थ्योरेटिकल कंसेप्ट है, लेकिन इट्स अ प्रैक्टिकल कंसेप्ट। मिसाल के तौर पे आप एक बिल्डिंग बना रहे हैं, या आपने एक बिल्डिंग बनाना शुरू करनी है, आपने अनाउंस किया, बड़ी आइडियल लोकेशन पे है और वो एक बिजनेस कॉम्प्लेक्स बना रहे हैं। एक बड़ी मल्टीनेशनल को भी शहर के बीचों बीच एक अच्छी जगह पे बिल्डिंग की तलाश थी। उन्होंने देखा कि आप बना रहे हैं और उन्हें डिज़ाइन भी आपका ठीक लगा कि हाँ ये हमारी ज़रूरियात को पूरा करता है। डिसाइड कि ओके जनाब, हम आपका ये बिल्डिंग 2 साल में आप बना के देंगे, वी आर विलिंग टू बाय इट। आप उसे कहते हैं कि सर यू हैव 2 ऑप्शंस, 2 साल में ये बनना है। अगर आप आज मुझे लमसम पे करते हैं तो मैं आपसे 100 मिलियन लूंगा, और अगर आप मुझे 2 साल बाद एट द टाइम ऑफ डिलीवरी पे करेंगे तो मैं 121 मिलियन लूंगा। क्यों? इस वजह से कि अगर कस्टमर एडवांस पेमेंट नहीं करता तो ये बिल्डिंग आपने अपने पल्ले से बनानी, तो अगर आप पल्ले से बनाएंगे तो आप अपने 100 मिलियन इंजेक्ट करेंगे सपोज, तो अगर आप 100 मिलियन यूटिलाइज करेंगे तो क्या होगा कि उसकी अपॉर्चुनिटी कॉस्ट देखें। अगर वो 100 मिलियन आप बैंक में डालते तो बैंक आपको 10% प्रॉफिट देता, तो 10% प्रॉफिट देता तो 10 रुपए बनते। अगले साल 110 का 10% बनता तो 11 रुपए बनते, तो ये 21 रुपए बने। समझ गए बात? सो बुनियादी तौर पर आपने अपनी कॉस्ट ऑफ कैपिटल उसमें एडजस्ट कर दी कि यार अगर ये नहीं देगा तो मुझे पल्ले से लगाना पड़ेगा, और अगर मैं पास नहीं है, मैं बैंक से कर्जा लेता हूँ, बैंक भी सपोज 10% पे देगा। तो स्टैंडर्ड ये कहता है कि आपने इंक्रीमेंटल बोरिंग रेट लेना है, यानी अपना ही लेना है कि अगर ये फंड्स कस्टमर नहीं देता एडवांस और मैं अपने पल्ले से लगाता तो मुझे क्या कॉस्ट पड़ती। क्लियर? तो अब कस्टमर अगर आपको वो 100 रुपीज आज एडवांस दे देता है तो आप 100 से बैंक को डेबिट करेंगे और कॉन्ट्रैक्ट लाइबिलिटी 100 से खड़ी कर लेंगे। पहले साल के एंड पे आप फाइनेंस कॉस्ट 10 से डेबिट करेंगे, कॉन्ट्रैक्ट लाइबिलिटी 10 से क्रेडिट कर देंगे। उसके बाद दूसरे साल भी फाइनेंस कॉस्ट 11 से डेबिट करके कॉन्ट्रैक्ट लाइबिलिटी 11 से क्रेडिट कर देंगे। जब आप बिल्डिंग डिलीवर करेंगे तो आप कॉन्ट्रैक्ट लाइबिलिटी 121 से डेबिट करके रेवेन्यू क्रेडिट कर देंगे 121 से। अब हुआ क्या कि 2 साल बाद रिटेन्ड अर्निंग में नेट इफेक्ट 100 का ही है, बिकॉज आपने जो 21 रुपए की एडिशनल फाइनेंस कॉस्ट चार्ज की वो 121 के रेवेन्यू से नॉक ऑफ करके नेट इफेक्ट 100 पे ले आई। बट हुआ ये कि उसने कहा कि इससे आपकी प्रेजेंटेशन ट्रू एंड फेयर व्यू पे आ गई, बिकॉज 1 साल से ज्यादा अरसे, मतलब कितने नफलों का स्वाब है कस्टमर को इतना एडवांस 2 साल एडवांस देने का। तो वो कहते हैं कि ऑब्वियसली आपने टेक्निकली ये फाइनेंशियल अरेंजमेंट किया था, यू आर इन नीड ऑफ मनी टू डू दिस प्रोजेक्ट, So this was a sort of financing arrangement with the customer. You asked him that give me the money and get the discount. So he paid you, and that's why you should show the incremental cost, which is a notional cost in this case, which should appear in your accounts. Make sense? तो उसने कहा कि बेसिकली जी
लेकिन मैं जब भी कस्टमर को इनवाइस करता हूँ गुड्स की, उस इनवाइस के अगेंस्ट वो 10% अमाउंट में एडजस्ट कर लेता हूँ उस इनवाइस में। तो इस केस में टाइम सर्टेन
नहीं, ये दो डिफरेंट चीज। ये एक्चुअली यू आर टॉकिंग अबाउट मोबिलाइजेशन एडवांस। ये कंस्ट्रक्शन कॉन्ट्रैक्ट्स में एक नॉर्म है कि नॉर्मली जब ठेकेदार से आप कॉन्ट्रैक्ट करते हैं तो आप उसे 10% मोबिलाइजेशन एडवांस देते हैं, जो हर प्रोग्रेस बिलिंग में 10% करके एडजस्ट हो रहा होता है। दैट इज समथिंग डिफरेंट। वी आर टॉकिंग अबाउट ही इज पेइंग यू द टोटल ट्रांजेक्शन प्राइस।
ओके सर,
ठीक है, जो आप बात कर रहे हैं दैट इज पार्ट ऑफ द ट्रांजेक्शन प्राइस, 10% ऑफ द ट्रांजेक्शन प्राइस. So that is being adjusted with every progress billing. Clear?
Okay.
But we are talking about that you are getting 100% transaction price in advance.
सर इस केस में भी तो मेरे पास से यानी कि उस ट्रांजैक्शन में फाइनेंस है ना कि मुझे आज उसने 500 मिलियन प्रोवाइड कर दिया है, अब अगले 2 सालों में मैंने जब भी गुड्स उसको सेल करनी है तो मैं 10% या
Exactly.
अमाउंट एडजस्ट करता जाऊंगा, तो फाइनेंसिंग कंपोनेंट इसमें भी है।
That is there because वो है, because वो देखिए स्टैंडर्ड सिंपली ये कहा है कि अगर जो परफॉर्मेंस ऑब्लिगेशन आप दे रहे हैं उसकी कैश और उसकी ओरिजिनल कंसिडरेशन, कैश प्राइस और कंसिडरेशन में डिफरेंस है, और दोनों में जो डिलीवरी में और पेमेंट का डिफरेंस है वो 1 साल से ज्यादा है, देन देयर इज अ फाइनेंसिंग कंपोनेंट। स्टैंडर्ड ने डिफाइन कर दिया कि किसी भी मुआहदे में अगर आपकी कैश प्राइस और कंसिडरेशन में डिफरेंस है और डिलीवरी और पेमेंट में डिफरेंस 1 साल से ज्यादा का है, देन देयर इज अ फाइनेंसिंग कंपोनेंट, और उस कंपोनेंट को आपने इंक्रीमेंटल बोरिंग रेट ऑफ द सेलर या वेंडर या सर्विस प्रोवाइडर का यूज करना है, उसकी बेस पे करना है। तो यस, इन दिस केस देयर इज अ फाइनेंसिंग कंपोनेंट, तो आप उसको कैलकुलेट करेंगे।
सर अब इसमें इशू ये है कि टाइम सर्टेन नहीं है कि डिलीवरी कब कब होगी।
देखिए
आपकी एग्जांपल
ये
जो है वो 2
इरेशनल
साल।
ये इरेशनल थिंग है। देखें ये लोग अक्सर पूछते हैं कि मेरे से कि सर डायरेक्टर्स लोन है, ना उस पर इंटरेस्ट है ना उसकी रीपेमेंट कोई टर्म्स फाइनल है, तो उसका क्या करें? ठीक है, तो देखें अगर हम कहें कि जी लोन है और IFRS 9 में जाता है तो फाइनेंशियल लाइबिलिटी है, तो फाइनेंशियल लाइबिलिटी ने तो अमोर्टाइज कॉस्ट पे होना है, तो अमोर्टाइज कॉस्ट के लिए तो आपको मेच्योरिटी चाहिए। तो अगर मेच्योरिटी भी नहीं है और दुनिया में कोई भी इतना समय बेवकूफ़ नहीं है कि बगैर किसी टर्म्स के और फ्री ऑफ कॉस्ट लोन देते ना, तो अगर ये प्रैक्टिस की जाती है तो ऑब्वियसली ये रिलेटेड पार्टी ट्रांजैक्शन होती है। तो इसमें हम क्या करते हैं, हम इसमें IAS 24 का दे देते हैं वो पैटर्न। अब जो आप कह रहे हैं कि जी कस्टमर को, तो ये पॉसिबल नहीं है। जो आप एज ए वेंडर आप एक डेट एस्टिमेट करते हैं कि ये प्रोडक्ट मेरे कब, ये तो नहीं हो सकता कि कस्टमर ने दे दिया कि लो जी बस यार जदों तेरा दिल करे दे दी। सो यू कांट लीव इट। ओके okay, so in this case, like what I'm saying, that no one gives you money to any company for free of charge. Everybody will charge a cost of over it. Okay, so to mean that if there is a director loan without interest and without repayment schedule, it is irrational. Okay, and no accounting standard deals with irrational transactions, so you have to make it rational. Okay, so if a customer has given you advance, you have to give him some delivery date. It is not possible in practical business world that you are taking advance and you don't know when to deliver. Okay, so that you have to decide as per business norms. If there is nothing in writing, then you have to make sure that when what would be the tentative time. Obviously that is subject to revision. If first you can think of 2 years, then it may get delayed, because we see that there are lags and delays in construction projects. So we all know that there are issues, practical issues, but in real world, their transaction should be rational, because standards don't address or don't provide any accounting treatment for irrational, illogical transactions. You need to be very clear on that.
Sir, usually, practically, there is no determined time period, or delivery schedule to deliver the goods. It depends upon the customer when he demands the goods. In this case, this is my case, this is a real life case, in which case, what should I do?
You need to assess based on your history.
Okay.
You need to assess based on your history, then what's the ideal time to deliver the products to the customer, because there would be history for that. Okay, so you need to use that as a standard, because you need to set a benchmark, and history is the best benchmark. Okay.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Okay, so yes.
In this particular scenario that was on the last page, so the implicit rate in the contract and the rate that we are using, for financing component, those are same. So actually, the incremental borrowing rate and implicit rate in the contract are same. But
Yes.
what if implicit rate is higher than the incremental borrowing rate?
Standard talks about implicit incremental borrowing rate. We will use incremental borrowing rate of the seller.
So in that case, results under both options will be different. So if we change this 10% simply to 8%,
No,
results
don't
will be
mix it up
different.
with the lessee treatment. In this, there is you are the vendor and you are taking financing. Okay, so you have to compare it with the financial arrangement if you get it from a bank, and what rate will you get that? So that will be your incremental borrowing rate, and that is the rate which you will use. So it's not implicit, it's not hidden in the contract. It's an obvious rate, because if you go to bank and ask, okay, give me 100 million, and bank says, okay, I will charge 10%, then that will be your rate to be used.
Well, actually, there is an implicit rate when we quote 100 rupees to be paid today, and we ask the customer to pay 121 after 2 years. So there is an implicit rate that we are asking from the customer.
That is implicit for the customer.
So if he chooses the second option,
see, in lease, for lessor, the rate is always known to him. It's the lessee who doesn't know, and then he uses incremental if he doesn't know the implicit rate. Same is the scenario here. The customer doesn't know what's the implicit rate, but obviously, being a vendor or seller, I know the implicit rate is actually my incremental borrowing rate. That's it. No, it's not possible. Like you can go to any financial institution, you can ask that, okay, if I ask you to give me this much borrowing on these terms, or this, for this much tenure, and with this repayment schedule, what will be the charge? I will give you this collateral. Bank, see, these are hypothetical things. And you will, being a financial CFO, if you call to your bank, they will simply give you the rate. Okay, yeah, this is the spread we will charge you, and you can simply calculate it by adding it in the KIBOR.
Sir, it means you are saying that rate is also market rate. If the bank is offering,
yes, obviously, incremental borrowing rate is the rate which is being offered by the bank to your company or to you. That's what I'm saying. It's the bank rate. Okay.
Sir, I think I was not very much clear about my question earlier. So I was just request you to please change that particular 10% and drop it down to like 5%. If I say that my incremental borrowing rate is 5%, then what would be the result in option A?
Obviously, if the rate will change, the result will change.
But still, I'm asking the customer to pay 121 rupees after 2 years.
You won't ask that. See, customer will judge that is it feasible for him to pay you 100 or 121. Then obviously you are charging extra profit. I am giving you a logical answer that because 100 and the 21 is the cost of capital for you, that which you want to recover, because your profit is there within the 100. Okay. But if you charge 121, despite the fact you are getting 5%, obviously the difference is your additional profit then.
So can I call that as a credit risk premium to be charged from the customer?
No, it's simply the profit you have charged. See, what's the interest? Interest is simply the bank profit and risk. This is what we know. So the same way, if you are getting 5% and you are charging 121, you are charging a higher price. Obviously, you are charging more profit. Then it's up to customer. If he agrees to that price, nobody will have any objection because he agreed to you that, okay, I will pay. It's up to him. That is why we will say the fair value, the fair value, because in fair value measurement, we say that the market participants decides themselves what's the best price. Obviously, if the customer thinks that there is a potential in getting the building there, you can obviously charge a high premium. See, in today's world, if you are building a plaza or any building on Mall Road or Main Boulevard, obviously every MNC would like to have that building as their office. But if you say, okay, I'm building in Bahria town, or I'm constructing somewhere in the on the Riven Road, obviously he might not be that much interested. He won't be able, either you might have to give him discount. Okay. Not necessarily. Yeah. Transaction price not necessarily equals to fair value.
Okay.
Okay.
If in case, if it is equivalent to market rate, yeah, market price, and the price will be paid more than 1 year, then there is a financial component in this transaction?
Whenever there is a difference between the consideration and the cash price, like you have set a cash price for a product, and you say, okay, if you will buy it on credit for more than 1 year, then this would be the price. Then there is a financing component. This is in every standard, like even for IS 16, IS 2, IS 38. If you see, there are deferred settlement terms there, which says that the difference between cash and credit price is the finance cost. Simple. We already know that.
Sir, in this case, if the contract takes more than 1 year, then it means there is a time value of money.
Yes. See, that incremental borrowing rate represents time value of money. Interest rate, what does it represent? See, if you invest 100 rupees in the bank, put your 100 rupees in a bank, you will get 10% interest. What is 10%? That is the time value of your money.
It means if the transaction price is equivalent to market rate of 2 days, and the contract is for more than 1 year, there is a financing component.
Yes, obviously you will see you won't be charging the same cash price. The sort of inflation we are facing nowadays, even after 1 week, you won't get the same price which are being offered today. Even if you go to a sanitary shop, many sanitary shops have mentioned that the quote is valid for only 1 week now, because they are saying that dollar rate is changing so quickly that we can't commit you this rate for after a week. Okay. So yes, obviously the financing component is the major driver which sets the price, because everybody who knows that there is a lag in the payment or delivery, then obviously that financing components jump in, and standard says it should be more than 1 year. That's it.
And it's mandatory by standard that it should be more than 1 year?
Yes. It's written in the standard that the delivery, the difference between delivery and payment must be more than 1 year.
And sir, in case, as you know, interest rate is volatilely changing.
See, those are practical things. Standard that is covered in BFT. I would say that in the valuation or the project DCF method. Okay. So that floating rate, fixed rate issue that are not supposed to discuss in this session, because that is there. But you have to obviously recalculate, and you have to adjust your financing component accordingly. Okay.
It means in this case, if the contract is less than for 1 year and the interest is
If it's if the difference between delivery and payment is less than 1 year, there is no financing component. Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. So in transaction price, the third factor is non-cash consideration. It is very simple. Like if you are delivering goods or services and you are being paid in shape of shares, in shape of any other asset, land or building, other than cash, anything other than cash, then the transaction will be measured at the fair value of the consideration given. Okay. So if you have been given shares, you will see the market value of the shares and you will recognize your revenue accordingly. So it's quite straightforward in case of non-cash consideration, and same is the case with the consideration payable to customer. For example, a company wants to sell its products through Walmart. Walmart says that, okay, your product size and substances like that, I will have to make some adjustment in my shelves in my all stores. So you say, okay, if you will sell, if you will buy $15 million products from me, I will give you 1.5 million in advance to modify your shelves. So you have paid in advance 1.5 million to the Walmart. So that consideration payable, paid to customer by the vendor will be deducted from the transaction price. So if you sell products of 15 million, you will be deducting that 1.5 million given in advance from that transaction price. Am I clear? So very simple. If you have given a 1.5 million, then initially you get 6 million and then you get 9 million. So 1.5 million is 10% of 15 million. Am I right? Then what will you do? You will adjust that consideration. You will book an asset of that consideration. You will debit consideration paid to the customer, bank credit, and then you will adjust credit that consideration paid against the revenue, and you will reduce your revenue accordingly. Okay.
The 1.5 million I'm paying right now is basically against all the potential sales to be made in future. But isn't it unjustified that I'm deducting this amount from the amount of current contract of rupees 15 million? Because after that, I'll be selling much more quantities to that particular customer.
No, actually, obviously, in the contract, you have to set a threshold. So usually there is always a target. If you go to any superstore and you want to sell your product through them, they will ask, okay, we will have to make some special arrangements for that. And because it's your product, you have to pay us to prepare a display for that. So that display, they say that we will not pay any single penny for that. You have to pay. And you know that you have paid for that specific sale. So I would say that both contracts are interdependent. So you will combine them. So in one contract, you are getting revenue, but in one contract, you are paying him. So obviously, once you combine them, you will net it off. Logical. Obviously, because both are independent, because you have to get a commercial, you have to achieve a commercial objective. That is to make a sale of 15 million. Clear? Okay, let's take a break for prayers. Okay, 15 minutes, then we will come back. Their questions. Kashif, could you please share the questions raised by an online participant? Okay, so we have a question from Sayyida Faiza Ali. Can you please give another example of a product that are not distinct? See, not distinct are usually the products which are given in a series of products or services, and it is usually happen in case of services and other activities like construction contracts, where you are constructing something and obviously you are utilizing bricks, gravel, cement, sand, steel. Obviously, these all items are distinct, but obviously the output would be a building. Then we will call it that these are single performance obligations. These are not distinct because the ultimate outcome is a single output. Shirazul Haq is asking, cumulative catch-up will be reflected in opening retained earning. No, I had told that cumulative catch-up adjustment will be treated under IS 8. It's a change in accounting estimate, so it will be treated prospectively and it will reflect in the current year. Aman Afaq, will we apply probability only on price, penalty price? Yes, obviously, the price which is subject to variation, the probability will be applied on that, and obviously it will result into expected value, or either you may have a most likely outcome in case you have one single outcome. Any other question? What is okay? Mr. Sajjad Hussain is asking, what is CFC in transaction price, please? So in transaction price, the financing component actually is CFC, and financing component comes when there is a difference of more than 1 year between payment and delivery. Okay, so that we need to understand because the time length is minimum 1 year, and there must be difference between the cash price and the consideration, or I would say the credit price. So that difference between cash and credit price is financing cost, which will be calculated using the incremental borrowing rate of the seller. Okay, ji. So let's move ahead. We are done with 3 steps, and we will move forward with the allocation. So in case of allocation, once we have identified the multiple performance obligations under the contract, then it's our job to allocate the transaction price. Obviously, if there would be only single performance obligation, the transaction price will be for that product or service only. But if there are multiple, how to allocate? So standard is very clear on that. We have to use stand-alone selling price to allocate the transaction price over the products. For example, you have, suppose, let's move in, let's finish the screen. So we have, suppose, A, B, C, and we are selling this product individually for 50, this for 25, this for 45. So this gives you, suppose, a total of 11, 15, but you are selling all these products all together in 100. So if you are selling A, B, C together for 100 rupees, but their individual total comes to 115 because of their standalone selling price, so you will be allocating this 100 by using these bases, which is very simple. So we will be allocating the transaction price using the stand-alone selling price. But I wish things would be simple, just like this. Standard says sometimes stand-alone selling price is not available. So if stand-alone selling price is not available, what do we need to do? Then obviously there are 3 approaches as per standard, which we need to apply as per the situation. One is adjusted market assessment approach. The second one is expected cost plus approach. Third one, the last one is residual approach. So these three approaches are quite simple and straightforward. If we see, to calculate standalone selling prices, in case these are not readily available to you. So what is adjusted market assessment? Suppose you are selling computers. If you are selling computers and you are selling a computer in 90,000 rupees and your competitor is selling computer in 80,000 rupees, but you want to sell a computer which is not common in the market. It's a new computer, it's a new brand, and you don't know what should be the standalone selling price. So you need to do the assessment based on that. For example, I will make it simple, like we have multiple mobile phone brands. If I ask you that what would be the selling price of Apple, Samsung, Huawei, Oppo, there are many others, Techno. If I give you mobiles with all having same features, do you really think I can charge same selling price for those mobiles? No. Despite the fact they have same features, same applications, same characteristics, we cannot charge same selling price. Why? Because of their brand and standing in the market. So what we can do, like for example, if we are launching a mobile and we think that we do a market assessment, and suppose we get a rating of 7 out of 10, and our competitor with the same specs in the mobile industry having a rating of 9, and his mobile is being sold at a price of 100,000. So what would be my price, standalone selling price in that case? Because my mobile standalone selling price is not available, it's a new mobile, I have to set a selling price for that. So what I'll do, I will simply multiply this by 7 and divided by 9 to apply my rating. So this way I will get the answer which will be less than 100,000. But this adjustment in the market price of my competitor, which is identical or similar in nature to my product, so I will get a tentative standalone selling price which I can use for the allocation purposes. Am I clear? So this sort of ratings we can use. So if we our mobile rating is 7 and our competitor's mobile rating is 9 and he's selling it for 100,000, so we will use these ratings as a benchmark to calculate the standalone selling price for our mobile. Another example can be given. For example, I have constructed a new plaza on Bain Boulevard, Gulberg. So I have constructed a state-of-the-art plaza, a 10-story building there. So I want to know the standalone selling price of my that 10-story building. So if I look around, there is no 10-story building which is being built in 2023, and all other buildings have old features and not those features which my building has. So obviously in that case, I won't be able to do the market assessment approach to get the standalone selling price, because obviously I don't have any identical or similar building in the area. So for that reason, obviously I won't be able to use my this approach to calculate the standalone selling price. So what should I do? So what I know, being a builder, that usually what we do charge 30% profit over cost to the customer. So what I'll simply do, I will calculate the expected cost of my building and I will add the margin of 30% over and above that to calculate the standalone selling price for my product. So this could be one way to calculate the standalone selling price if I don't have any identical or similar product in the market for which I can make some adjustment to get the standalone selling price. Am I clear? So if you cannot use market assessment approach, then you can use expected cost plus margin approach. Then what happens, like if I'm selling a product and I'm offering a maintenance services along with that. Suppose I'm selling a photocopier machine and I'm offering 3 years service maintenance services. So I'm charging a price for both of that. So I have to allocate price between photocopier and the maintenance. Let's assume that the photocopier, this brand is unique and I don't have any clue how to calculate it because its features, its brand, it's not comparable with any other product available in the market. So mean to say, because I didn't produce it, I purchased it. So I'm not sure what margin should be charged for this photocopier. So I won't be able to use market assessment approach and expected cost plus approach. But on the other hand, I'm offering maintenance services for 3 years also within that price. So what I know that usually, suppose 100 rupees is the cost per month for the maintenance, and for 3 years it will come to 3600. So if I get the maintenance services price offered within the package, then what I can do simply that out of suppose 10,000 I have charged for both, I will simply deduct the maintenance services price from this, and then I will get the residual which I can allocate to my photocopier machine. Am I clear? So this is the residual approach. In case you are unable to determine the standalone selling price using adjusted market assessment approach and expected cost plus approach, then the only option left is that you need to calculate the standalone selling prices for all the other products and services in the contract and allocate the remaining residual to that product for which you are unable to calculate standalone selling price. So we have questions again. Yes, please share the screen. Okay. So we have question from Fahim Masood. In case of SFC, how to treat the profit earned on the advance if deposited in bank, etc. See, that is your interest income. If you use, obviously, for that, you might need to revise the borrowing cost standard IS 23. Obviously, you will net it off that interest income from the significant financing component or finance cost being charged in the accounts on this transaction. So we have a question from on Heather. What if initially the delivery time was 6 months, less than 1 year, but actually at year end it's still not delivered, but is expected to see? This was a similar question which was being asked by participant from here. See, you need to be very clear. If your business practice is that you deliver your products within a very short period of time, so for any transaction which you initially were intended to deliver the products within 6 months, but for any reason you couldn't deliver, you cannot charge financing component for exceptions. Okay, so if your business, if you are a builder and you are doing EPC contracts and you're delivering buildings or projects after 3 to 4 years, yes, in that case financing component would be there as always, because you will be putting that in your costing. But if you are doing a pharmaceutical business or any other product business in which you deliver within 1 month, after 1 month, 2 months, 6 months, but for some reason there is a delay, standard allows that if there are delays which are beyond your control, then don't think too much that you need what to do with this exception. Just try to sort it out. It's okay. Okay. So you cannot treat such transactions for CFC, SFC. Any next question? Is that all? Okay. So now this is what we know about the allocation thing. So I think we are all clear with respect to allocation. Those need to be allocation need to be based on standalone selling price. And if it's not available, we have the approaches to be used. Yes, we have a question. Yes.
Based on the residual method allocation, but issue is that the portion which relates to freight which I have recovered from the customer, whether I will present it as a revenue, and the second question is that the cost which I have borne to provide the freight services, is it a cost of sale or selling expenses?
See, it's a selling expense because what you have agreed with him is it needs to be mentioned on the invoice. Okay. So if on the invoice it's mentioned that delivery is on the supplier, it's understood that I'll be paying only this price and it's supplier's job to deliver it to my doorstep.
Yes.
Okay. So that freight will be a selling expense simply. Nothing complicated.
Sir, because I am recovering this amount from the customer and the transaction price include that portion of the freight.
You are overstating the revenue in because you are including the freight in that. On the other hand, you are charging the freight expense in the selling expense. So it will knock it off automatically. What's complicated? See, you are charging, if without delivery, you will be charging 100. So with freight, you are charging 110.
100, yes.
Okay. Then your revenue would be 110. And the 10 which you are paying actually for the freight will go into selling expense. Okay. So that effect would be 100. Yeah. So these are delivery terms. The role, the concern we will have we will address in step 5, which is recognition. So in recognition, the last step, we see that either we have to recognize revenue at a point in time, or should we recognize it over time? So over a period of time or at a point in time, it all depends on few factors. At a point in time case, there are 5 things mentioned by standard that if you see these 5 any of the 5 indicators, any of the 5, not all 5, any of the 5 indicators, then you can recognize your revenue at the point of delivery or when that indicator comes to you. Okay. The first one is right to payment. So if you have unconditional right to payment after delivery, this is usually happens. So obviously you can recognize your revenue. The second one is the transfer of legal title. Either you have transferred possession or you have transferred significant risk and reward. And last one is acceptance by the customer. If any of these 5 indicators appears, then you can book your revenue. But obviously, the date at which you become entitled to the payment, you can recognize revenue. Either the transaction terms are so that once you transfer the title, like if you are selling cars, once the Honda gives you the invoice and gives you the authority letter to get it registered on your name, they sell their revenue. They recognize the revenue. Okay. So even though they are taking advance payments, and usually the seller becomes entitled for the payment only when he delivers the goods or services. Okay. So in case if he gets advance payment and he still has to perform his part of obligation, then that advance will become contract liability. Okay. So we need to make a difference between that. And what usually happens, if you give a possession of a product to your customer, it owns or usually means that now you have handed over the product, you can recognize your revenue. Significant risk and reward is simply that, okay, you went to an electronic store, you purchase a refrigerator. Okay. Your refrigerator has been handed over to you. You put it in a pickup and you are going home. And unfortunately an accident happened and it gets damaged. Whose loss is that? Is your loss. It's not the electronic store loss anymore. So obviously the risk and reward has been transferred to you. So the electronic transfer store will recognize its revenue at the time of delivery. Okay. Similar is the case, like you have delivered a product to a customer and you have given 30 days time that, okay, you can use it, you can do a trial on it. And once you will give your acceptance to me in writing, then I will recognize my revenue. This is the case when obviously we deliver customized goods to different customers, because usually they ask, okay, I will try use it for some days, and then if I'll be satisfied, then I will give you my acceptance. So in that case, you can recognize your revenue. But in case of overtime, it is usually when we have non-distinct products and services. In that case, usually we have a single performance obligation, and that performance obligation we deliver over a period of time. But here standard has given us 3 criteria for overtime. If they are there, then obviously we have to book that revenue over a period of time. One of that says the customer simultaneously receives and consumes the benefits. So if we are delivering something and customer is able to utilize, consume it, or take benefit of that thing, obviously that will be considered overtime. Like we are providing wheat to flour mills, if we are providing cotton bales to spinning mills. So in all these cases, we are delivering products and they are consuming it. So by the time we will delivering, we will book revenue. But if the output is single outcome, which is usually the case of construction, or in case of any products which usually take substantial period of time, then we use this overtime recognition criteria. But the most important thing, customer asset is created or enhanced. It means that if there is a building or some product which we are building and which will take substantial period of time, 6 months or 1 year, which we usually call work in progress in our accounts. So in that case, the revenue will be recognized over time. The last criteria is very important, which is related to the housing sector also, which says that asset created has no alternative use to the entity. So if I am producing a product for a customer, how come is it possible that I won't be able to use it? It is only if I am producing or manufacturing that product on customer's instructions or as per customer's specification. Suppose if I'm a builder, I'm building apartments. If I am building standard apartments, I can sell them to anyone. But if I am building an apartment or a house as per customer's design and specification, how can I sell it to anyone? I cannot sell it to anyone. I can only sell it to that specific customer. who is getting it constructed through me. So this is the main criteria. If you have this, obviously, then you will be recognizing your revenue over a period of time. Then the final few things in revenue is that how to recognize revenue over a period of time. We use the method stage of completion method to recognize revenue over time. So stage of completion method is that how much we have achieved over a period of time, and accordingly we need to book revenue according to that progress. If we have achieved 50% completion criteria, we will recognize revenue of 50%. So that stage of completion we can determine using two methods. One is input method, second is output method. Input method says, suppose I am constructing a building for a customer, and I know that I have to incur a cost of 100 million. So if I have incurred a cost of 20 million, it means simply that 20% of the project has been completed. So I will recognize the revenue of 20%. This is input method because I am measuring stage of completion based on the input, the cost incurred by me. Okay. So in case of output, this is usually a physical output. Like we can say that we are constructing a 10-story building, and when 2 stories are completed, it means 20% is completed. Okay. And we can use another input method. We can hire a surveyor, and we can ask him, okay, come and tell us that how much we have completed. So that surveyor, being an independent person, he reviews the construction plan and architecture plan, and he says that, okay, you have completed 35%, because the basement takes usually more time. So if he says, okay, no, it's been completed 35%, then we both will agree, and I will work revenue of 35% of my total transaction price. Am I clear? So there are multiple input output methods could be there as per business norms and practices. So we need not to worry about that. If you will get into any specific industry, you will see yourself that which method you can use. Then one new change which was made by IFRS 15 is that the incremental cost to obtain contract. Initially or previously, there was no instruction about it, because like if I have to submit tender, I have to submit a bid for each tender. It's my practice. I have to incur that cost to prepare that bid and all the drawings and BOQs, and I have to submit it as a routine. But if I ask my salesperson that, okay, submit these tenders, and if we will get any of these tender, I will pay 10% commission out to you. So that commission would be the incremental cost to you, because in case you will get that tender, you will have to pay 10% commission. So previously we were charging that commission as an expense to P&L. But right now, after IFRS 15, we cannot charge it to P&L directly. Standard says that we need to recognize it as an asset, and we have to amortize this cost following the same pattern of revenue recognition used by us. So if we are recognizing revenue, suppose on stage of completion method, if I recognize a revenue of 20%, I will amortize 20% of the incremental cost. Am I clear? So this way we have to match the pattern of revenue and the asset which is actually representing the incremental cost to obtain the contract. Then the last thing, in IS 18, there was no guidance about the unconditional right to payment. So unconditional right to payment is a new thing under IFRS 15. Like if you have signed a contract with a customer and he's supposed to make up advance payment on 1st January of 2023. but he didn't make any payment. So under IS 18, we used to book no entry. We used to do nothing. We didn't book any entry at that time. But now, even if he didn't make the payment on 1st January, but as per contract, he is supposed to make a payment, you will book a receivable of that advance amount, suppose 100, and you will book a contract liability. And once you will get that advance at a later date, you will debit the bank and reverse that receivable of 100. So this is a new thing, which is we call unconditional right under IFRS 15, which you have to recognize. If it's written in the contract that the customer is supposed to make an advance payment, even if he didn't make the payment, you will book a receivable on that specific date, because you have unconditional right, because that right is given by that contract, and contract is legally enforceable at law. Are we all clear? Okay. So with this, we are done with IFRS 15. I tried my level best to summarize it because it's a big standard and there were many questions. I hope there are still some questions. Can you please show the questions which were asked by online? Drag it down, I think. No? Yes.
Like for example, 30%. So, so if I'm giving these two services, furthermore, I'm adding something else to the contract that I'll be giving a 5% discount to my customer out of my particular commission if he comes and buys another unit from me. So I'm adding another material right in the contract that wouldn't be available to any other customer who doesn't enter into a contract with me. So my question is that how many performance obligations are there, and how do I, bifurcate these performance obligations using the criteria given by IFRS 15 of distinct? And if I conclude that there are 3 different performance obligations, how do I allocate the transaction price? And eventually, how do I recognize revenue for all the performance obligations? Would it be over time? For like selling of unit, it might be like point in time, and for services of collection, whether it would be point in time or over time, and for material right, whether it would be point in time or over time.
See, initially, there are 2 parties. One is the principal, the builder, who is building the apartments and selling it through you. So you have an agency agreement with your principal. Okay. So with that agency agreement, the principal is the one who is supposed to book the revenue. But obviously, being an agent, you are offering your services to the builder's customers, and you are the front face of the builder. So you are getting 3 sort of income. Okay. So for those incomes, obviously, I don't see anything which you are getting over a period of time, because if any customer comes to you and he agrees to buy, and obviously he would be signing a contract to buy that, and obviously you will be asking him to pay your commission upfront.
No, actually, I'm getting 30% DP in the chunk of 10% from the customer, and then I pay that particular DP to the developer, and then developer releases my commission from his end.
See, then you will have to match your revenue with the builder's revenue practice, because obviously, if you are not, see, what would be the consequence if the builder didn't deliver that that apartment? Will you be getting that commission?
Yes, my performance obligation or my part is to make arrange that particular 30% DP to the developer. And once that DP is done, the customer and the developer are now direct with each other, and I'm out of the contract now.
Yeah, so in case of services, usually we go for overtime recognition, because obviously you are pursuing the client and you are getting payments over a period of time. So you would be recognizing revenue over a period of time, because delivery is usually at a point in time is usually related to products. You have to be very clear, because in case of products, the significant risk and reward obviously immediately can be transferred to the customer. But in case of services, it's an ongoing process. So you need to make sure that what are the terms. You need to be sure that what are the terms agreed with the principal. Like if in case he didn't deliver anything and you will have a loss of revenue, then obviously then it will be over time, because by the time customer is paying, you will be recognizing your revenue. But if you will not lose your revenue despite the fact that a builder didn't deliver on time, or just a bank gets bankrupt, then obviously you can book your revenue if you don't have any issue, because you are entitled, your right to payment is there. You have delivered your services, you have brought the customer on board, so you have done your job. But if you still have to keep pursuing the customer to make him pay for the DPC deposit you are talking about, then obviously that is a continuous process. Then you will recognize your revenue over a period of time.
So it means that if I'm not responsible about the delivery of the product, that in that case, I'll be recording my revenue at point in time.
Yeah, if in case you will not lose revenue if any defaults is on the part of the builder.
Sure. So what would be the point of time, whether it would be the point when I have sold that particular unit, or would it be the time when 30% DP is complete?
Technically speaking, obviously the customer would be signing any document, would sign any document. So by the time that contract is signed, you can recognize your revenue, because now you have an unconditional right, because that contract he has signed is legally enforceable.
So if he is signing a booking form without making any payment, and he's agreeing that he'll be buying the unit, so I can record my total revenue at that particular point in time.
Exactly. That is what I was talking about, that in IFRS 15, if you have signed a contract and you were supposed to get a payment. So if it's mentioned that now it's done and now you are entitled for the payment, you can recognize your revenue. Because you can ask your principal or customer anytime to make a payment.
But IFRS 15 says that you won't be recognizing any revenue until the performance obligation is satisfied. So in this particular contract, I've also
will book a receivable and a contract liability. Okay, you will book a receivable and a contract liability, but your revenue will be recognized with the over the time. But I'm talking about the unconditional right. You won't be booking the revenue, you would be booking a receivable, because now you are entitled for your commission payment. So you will book a receivable and a contract liability, because obviously if the customer gets what you have promised, obviously then he will keep making payments.
Okay, fine. Thank you.
Okay, so let's move ahead. We have a next standard.
Excuse me, sir.
Yes.
Sir, I have a question.
Yes, yes. Yes, please.
जी क्वेश्चन ये था कि अगर एक हाई राइज बिल्डिंग बनाई है और उसके साथ जो है वो जो है कार पार्किंग भी है और प्ले ग्राउंड्स है, तो उनकी ट्रांजैक्शन प्राइस कैसे एलोकेट की जाएगी, रेवेन्यू रिकॉग्निशन ओवर द पीरियड होगी?
देखिए, what you are asking that whenever you build a tower, usually you give a play area or commercial area or a common area, car parks. These are all covered within the selling price. Okay, so based on that, what you do, you will use those three approaches. Okay, so you will see that what should be, I think the cost plus margin approach you can use, or you can either use the residual approach for that, because you need to calculate the cost of the apartment plus the profit margin you are charging over that, and any differential between that and the total selling price can be charged to the common areas. So you can keep them all together, not to segregate. Like you can simply, in usually such construction projects, the common area, the elevators, the stairs, the parking lots, the playgrounds, all that comes in common area. So you can simply allocate a revenue for that common area if you want to do. Otherwise, you need not to do that, because in CDA or LDA or RDA, they approve a plan for the whole lot. So you are charging for that, so common area also. So I don't think so you need to allocate for that, because for a performance obligation, it should be separately available or being offered by other parties also. But obviously, the parking lot offered by your company in the tower can be being offered by your company only. Nobody can offer a parking for your residents. So technically speaking, in your case, the playing area, the common areas, they need not to be segregated. They are not separate performance obligations. They will be kept within the same total cost.
Sir, a company manufacture active pharmaceutical ingredients for which the main raw materials are imported, and the raw material cost is substantial. And the company has a contract with the customer that if the dollar rate exceeds a certain limit, then the customer will reimburse the excess amount that has already been agreed with the customer. Is the additional amount which is reimbursed by the customer fall under IFRS 15 or fall under IFRS 9 as a hedging instrument?
See, for hedging instrument, there are certain other requirements. For exchange rate fluctuation, that risk actually, if you want to cover it through fair value or cash flow hedge, you need to designate that item as a hedged item. Only then you can do that. So that is not being done in Pakistan. So basically, what you will do, that will be a part of your, that will be treated under IS 21, where you can take the exchange rate differential in OCI or P&L according to your terms and conditions, because it's the exchange rate difference fluctuation you are charging to your customer.
Sir, why it's not a revenue? Because I have a contract with customer that if the...
It's a revenue, but it will be an exchange gain.
Whether it would be classified under revenue or other income?
Other income. Because see, this is a non-recurring item. This is not what actually you are selling. You are selling raw material, pharmaceutical products to your customer. You are not selling dollars to them. Okay. So you whatever which is not your non-core business, that goes to your other income, like scrap sale, like interest income. Okay, like profit on deposits. So same thing as on same basis, the exchange gain loss goes into other income, not to your revenue. In revenue, you always keep the transaction price which you actually charged through invoice, and any ancillary terms which generated extra profit or extra margins or extra income, that will go to other income.
No, sir, in this case, when I made a contract with customer, dollar was 180. And the contract was that in the next month, in the next 6 months, if the dollar exceeds 190, then the 10 rupees excess amount will be reimbursed by the customer. And in the next 6 months, I have purchased the raw material at 190, and the transaction is recorded, or purchase is recorded at 190. In this case, the 10 rupees is charging to cost of sale.
Wait. Number one thing is that it's sort of a derivative arrangement, a sort of thing. You are hedging your item, but actually in Pakistan, in derivatives, what you do, you need to book your forward gain or loss. But in this case, because we are not applying IFRS 9, So as per terms of the contract, whenever he will pay you, you will obviously take that money as a to reduce your cost of sale.
Okay.
Okay. So because he is reimbursing you, so you can reduce your cost of sale. Because if you had purchased it, it's sort of a discount you are getting from your customer, because will be paying 180 and additional 10 will come from the customer. So he's reimbursing you the cost.
Okay. It means
Simple.
it should not be classified as revenue.
Yeah, if the scenario is this, then it will go to cost of sale. You will adjust your raw material cost, but you will show separately that adjustment, because you are purchasing a raw material at a
Yes.
cost of 190, but 10 rupees is being reimbursed by the customer for that raw material, and you are generating a separate invoice for the sale. So
Yes.
that is not showing that 10. So obviously that revenue will not be changed. So you will show this 10 as an adjustment in a cost of sale.
Okay. Similar cases that if I have
But you will mention the reason that it's the exchange gain adjustment.
Okay, in the notes to the cost of sale.
Yeah.
So similar question is that if I imported goods and later on the supplier offered me a rebate, then this rebate can also be net off against purchase cost.
Yeah, we usually do that, but obviously, if the inventory is still there, if you have already consumed or utilized the inventory, then you cannot charge that rebate against the cost of sale, because it's related to some specific inventory which you might have been utilized. If the inventory is there, you can make an adjustment in the inventory.
Okay.
Otherwise, you will take it in the revenue if it's been consumed and sold out.
Revenue in the form of cost of sale or
In other income.
other income.
Sir, if you allow me to
Yes.
explain this typical question,
Yes.
specific question, I should
Okay.
say. See, if we take it as an example of export sales, what we do is that we export in dollars or whatever, and a dollar amount is posted by multiplying in PKR, and revenue is recognized. But after 2 months, 3 months time, as per the terms of the contract, the amount comes in, and sometimes it is more than that or less than that, given the exchange rate. So the very specific situation, and we charge that thing as other income, not as revenue. The same applies here, is that if you have sales arrangements within Pakistan of such nature, then the result would be the very same as it was for the export sales.
Now,
So
see,
this is that area actually.
no, the scenario is different. What you're talking about, see, in case of export sales, you have a receivables in dollars, okay? And then it falls under IS 21, because you will have a remittance in shape of dollars, and once it will be exchanged into Pak rupees, the Pak rupees amount will change, whatever you had booked. So IS 21 specifically deals with this, and it says that all the monetary assets will be remeasured, okay, and only exchange rate gain loss will go to P&L.
True.
Okay.
True.
But his scenario is different. He has actually hedged the cost. He has hedged the cost that, okay, for me, raw material cost is fixed for 180. If its cost is, if it will cost me 190, you will reimburse me 10 rupees. Okay. So obviously, because it's part of the contract and it's being hedged, so that hedged item will be adjusted with that hedging instrument. So that 10 rupees will be adjusted in the cost of sale. So this is something different.
True that. He had multiple questions. The first question was about the sale, revenue recognition part.
Yeah, the other one was related
Yes,
to rebate.
That is there. Even within Pakistan, there are certain transactions between two companies which are not in PKR and they are in dollar terms.
Yes.
For me specifically, we deal with telcos, and we invoice them in dollars. And we have an agreement with them that this is a basic rate, and then there are escalations given the change in the value of the parity, and that is adjusted as other income. this is where I brought in the export example, that if you are exporting something and then the rate changes, the change in rate is clubbed as other income as exchange gain or loss. The second part, obviously, yes, if the cost is, the arrangement is the very same. Either it is sales or it is cost of sales. But with reference to cost of sales, because the inventory is there, as your good self rightly pointed out, so that would the result, the exchange gain or loss would go to the cost part.
Yes.
Coming back to the revenue part, if we charge that exchange gain as revenue, then we will be charging sales tax as well, and that would increase the cost. Who will bear the cost?
That's why I mentioned that your revenue would be as per your invoice which you have sent to the customer. The compensation which you have actually reimbursed, taken as a reimbursement from the customer, because you in your books you have booked your raw material at 180. So any price fluctuation which will take it above 180 will be reimbursed by the customer. So you will, once you will get that from customer, you will simply adjust the raw cost of sales. But you will not take it in the revenue. That's it. Okay. Okay. So we are short of time, so we need to run a bit fast. So let's talk about IS 36 impairment. Impairment is a very interesting standard. It talks about non-current assets basically. So it is in line with IS2. Just like in IS2, we all know that for IS2 there is a write down, and we do the write down when we do see any indication of physical damage or obsolescence. So similar is the case with the asset, non-current asset. If we see some indicators which could be external or internal, based on that, we are supposed to do impairment testing. So for a impairment testing, the simple concept is that if the carrying amount is greater than recoverable amount, there is an impairment. So if your carrying amount is 100, your recoverable amount is 90, there is impairment of 10, which will go to P&L. But what is recoverable amount? So recoverable amount, we all know that from assets, we can take benefit from an asset by either by using it or by selling it. In case of inventories, we know we can take advantage by selling them. But in case of non-current assets, we use them in the production, or we can sell them as required if we don't need them anymore. So we can take advantage by selling or using. It depends on the return which we expect from them. So keeping in view the same concept, same logic, every rational businessman will optimize the utilization of its asset, and if he thinks that there is no benefit of using it anymore and I can make more money by selling it, he will certainly sell it. And if he thinks that I can take more advantage by using it, obviously he will use it. So what the standard says that, okay, recoverable amount is higher of value in use and fair value less cost of disposal. So fair value less cost of disposal. So we can see here that from an asset, we will see what would be the benefit by using it, and we will compare it that what would be the benefit by selling it. Whichever is higher, we know that our rational businessman will do that. So we will take the higher one as a residual recoverable amount, and we will compare it with the carrying amount. So fair value less cost of disposal, what is this? fair value less cost of disposal. Fair value, obviously, we can calculate it as per IFRS 13, and cost of disposal, stamp duty, legal cost, other documentation costs, charges, but it doesn't include finance cost and income tax, because finance cost is not related to operations. It's a function of loan or debt. On the other hand, income tax is a statutory obligation, and it varies based on different factors because of tax laws. So it has no relevancy. That is the reason, because that is the reason we don't take it into account. And cost of disposal consists of only stamp duty, legal cost, and other transaction cost, which we usually incur or may incur to sell the asset. Value in use. What is value in use? Value in use is the present value of cash inflows minus cash outflows plus sale proceeds. So what we will get after selling it. So if we want to use an asset for a period of 5 years, we will see what would be the cash inflows. We will deduct the cash outflows, and we will add the sale proceeds, which we expect to recover it at the time of disposal. So for value in use, we use a discount rate, which is a pre-tax discount rate. A pre-tax discount rate is the rate which has no effect of tax, because I had already told you that income tax is a statutory obligation, and it's calculated obviously on different basis than the accounting profit. So standard has specifically mentioned that use pre-tax discount rate. So we will discount the cash inflows. So cash inflows obviously would be the cash profits, and the payment cash outflows would be the expenses which we will be incurring, plus the sale proceeds. So we will calculate the present value, and we will compare it with the fair value less cost of disposal. So then the point comes that impairment of an asset. Standard says an asset for which you would be testing impairment must be a cash generating unit. So an asset for which you want to measure impairment, or you want to test impairment, it must be a CGU. CGU, what is cash generating unit? Cash generating unit is, see, there was a question that is it a risk-free rate? No, it's not a risk-free. Risk-free is the treasury rate. We don't use it. We use it the debt rate, weighted average cost of capital. Okay, this discount rate is the weighted average cost of capital, WACC, which we usually call it. So CGU. So CGU is, what does standard say? A group of assets, a smallest group of assets which generates independent cash flow. So anything could be a CGU, like for example, if you have a ginning factory, we all know that what ginning factories do, they actually take footy, the raw cotton, and they convert it into cotton bales. Suppose there is a group which has a ginning factory, then has a spinning unit, which converts that cotton into yarn. Then it has a weaving unit, which converts that yarn into fabric. Then it has a dyeing unit, which dyes the fabric. Then it has a stitching unit, where they stitch it, stitch the garments, and then they sell it. Now we need to see that, okay, this company has these 5 segments. So the company has 5 segments. Should we treat all these 5 segments as separate CGUs or a single CGU? So what standard says, it says that despite the fact the output of a group of asset is totally used internally, but if there is an active market for its output, that segment will be treated as separate CGU. Am I clear? So we all know that the ginning unit's cotton bales are being consumed by its own spinning segment. But because those cotton bales can be easily sold in the market to any spinning mill, it means that ginning unit will be considered a separate ginning CGU. Okay. So in this case, in all these 5 segments, we know the output of each segment can be sold easily in the market. There is an active market for its output. Yes, then all these 5 segments are 5 separate CGUs. Am I clear? So whenever we calculate impairment, we calculate with reference to a CGU, and CGU is obviously always a group of assets. Then the main critical point which comes in case of impairment is the corporate assets and goodwill. In case of corporate assets, we know that if a company has 5 segments, but there would be only one head office, because head office would be working and supervising the operations of all the 5 segments. And there could be a computer network. It will be a common network which will be capturing all the financial reporting for the 5 segments. Similarly, if you have a goodwill, obviously, if you have 5 segments, the goodwill belongs to all 5 segments. So standard says that corporate assets and goodwill should be allocated on reasonable and consistent basis to the segments. So what could be the possible reasonable and consistent basis for allocation? So allocation bases are usually the useful lives. So why useful life? Useful life, see, if I have 3 segment A, B, C, one has a useful life of 10 years, second has a useful life of 5 years, the C has a useful life of 20 years. Can I say that segment C would be using goodwill for 20 years and corporate assets for 20 years, while B would be using it for 5 years and A would be using it for 10 years. So I need to give weightage to them, okay? Because if I will allocate the goodwill or corporate assets based on simple these carrying amounts of these segments, it will not be the right way to allocate. It will not be a reasonable basis of allocation, because in this case, I will be allocating 20. What will be the total of this? It will be 35. So suppose if I want to allocate a goodwill of 10. So how would I allocate? So I will simply do this 10 divided by 35. For A, for B, it will be 5 into 10 divided by 35. Then C into 20 into 10 divided by 35. But what if I say that, okay, let's assume A, if A using goodwill for 1 time, C would be using goodwill for 2 times, because it's 20 years. So it will be 2 times of A, while in case of C, it will be half of A, 0.5 times of A. So if I want to give them weightage, I will use the least common multiple. I will be putting this 0.5, 1.5 and 2 for that. And I will multiply this with the carrying amount. So it will give me 10. It will give me 2.5 and it will give me 40. Okay, let's assume these are the carrying amounts and these are the useful lives. So you will see the weightage has changed a lot by a big margin. Initially, you were allocating goodwill using these bases, but now the bases have changed a lot because we have given a weightage of useful life to them, because we know that C would be using goodwill or corporate assets for 20 years as compared to A and B. Okay, so if someone is using more, the more portion should be allocated to it. And obviously, if we are using useful lives, then the weighting should be based on useful lives. How we can do that? Let's see. See, zoom. How to share screen? Oh, it's there. Okay. So if you see here, in this question, the company has two segments, and if you see two segments, and the question says, let me open question for you also. Huh? Zoom पे नहीं है? कर So here you can see a question. In this case, we have two segments, A and B. Okay. And if you see A and B, we have been given the carrying amounts. So these are the carrying amounts. And we have been given fair values. Okay. And for the value in use, we were given the cash inflows, sale proceeds, and outflows. What we did, we used discounting rate given in the question, and we calculated the value in use. So we had fair value less cost to sell, we had value in use, and we had carrying amounts. So we put it here. We can see we have a carrying amount of 12,165, and we, in case of value in use and fair value, we know that value in use is higher. So we compared these two. The impairment is 236. So in this case, you can see this way things work, and we do the allocation. Then how to allocate? Simply, the standard says the impairment allocation will start from goodwill. Whenever there is an impairment, you will first reduce the goodwill, and you will reduce it to 0. And if there is any residual, then you will allocate on pro rata basis to the assets of the CGU. So in this case, the A and B segments were a single segment. So that is the reason we combined them. They were not separate. They were a single segment. So you can see what we have another point to learn here, that we can see we have been given individual fair values and we have allocated 236 impairments. You can see the goodwill has been fully reduced to 0. Then we were left with 136. And you can see I didn't allocate any impairment to building. What's the reason? Because standard says that no asset of the CGU will be reduced below its fair value. So in case if fair value is higher than the carrying amount, individual assets fair value who is part of the CGU, and if its fair value is higher than the carrying amount, which is the case here, if you see 6,000 is higher than 5,450. So even though building is part of the CGU, which has been impaired, but no impairment will be allocated to that building despite the fact the CGU is impaired, because its individual fair value or benefit is higher. Because if businessman will sell this building, he will make profit. So it can't be impaired. So you will be allocating impairment only to the assets whose fair value is less than the carrying amount. Then we come to the second example. Here you can see we have multiple assets, and the important thing to know is that inventory is also part of there. But remember, IS 36 specifically exclude IS 2. It doesn't apply on current assets or IS 2. So if you see, the question had given the fair value of 8 or NRV, so it will not be be there in the working also. So in this case, also remember one thing. Here you would be, you can see the difference. There was a single allocation column. In the second example, you will have 2 allocation columns. What's the reason? When we calculate the impairment, the first thing is to allocate the impairment to the goodwill. So see, if you see here, the goodwill has been fully reduced to 0. Then what's left? These are the assets. So if you see here, the building is at 22, fair value is 21.70. If we allocate based on the carrying amount, the impairment, it would be higher than 0.3. But as per standard, we have been restricted to reduce it below fair value less cost to sell. In the above example, remember the fair value was higher. It was 6,000. So we didn't allocate a single penny to the building. But in this case, because fair value was only 0.3, is less by 0.3 only. So we charge 0.3 because the share is higher, but we cannot charge more than 3.3. In equipment, yes, we charge the share. If you see, no, formula is not coming here. So then you will see the license. It's 20 and 18 is the fair value. Its share of impairment is higher, but we cannot charge beyond 2 because we cannot reduce it below 18. So its impairment share is 2 only. So same is the case with investment property. We allocate the charge. So because we couldn't charge the fair share of impairment of building and license to them, so the leftover is there. We couldn't allocate the impairment to those fully. So that leftover impairment will be allocated to the other assets of the CGU. So the actual amount of impairment for building was higher. Similarly, the actual amount of license was higher, impairment amount was higher. So that amount was in total 6.22. So we allocated the remaining impairment loss to other assets in the second round. So this is a bit tricky area in IS 37, which is obviously a bit difficult to grasp in such a small span of time. But just to make it clear, the concepts that in impairment, you will simply compare carrying amounts with the recoverable amount. Recoverable amount is higher of value in use and fair value less cost to sell. So fair value comes from the usage and fair value comes from the disposal. Also, one thing, remember one thing, if you have fair value less cost to disposal, which is higher than carrying amount, then don't waste time in calculating value in use. And also remember that if you decide to classify an asset as a held for sale, then value in use will be equal to fair value less cost to disposal. Because if you have decided to dispose of an asset, you won't be using that asset. So cash inflows would be only from sale proceeds. So technically speaking, more or less, its value in use and fair value less cost to disposal would be same. That is the reason in IFRS 5, you will see the measurement basis for held for sale assets is fair value less cost to sell, because in IFRS 5, for a asset to be classified held for sale, there is a mandatory requirement that the asset should be available for immediate sale. Like if a buyer comes, he can simply take it away. So that is the reason you won't be using that asset, and obviously the only proceeds which will come from an asset held for sale would be from disposal. So that is the reason you won't be calculating value in use. Yes.
How came 1.62 in case of investment property at cost model?
Which one?
1.62 in the first round.
Yes.
Investment property at cost model.
Yeah. See, in a not necessary in question, they will give you the fair value less cost of disposal for each and every asset. Okay. Sometimes fair value is not available. So in that case, you can charge a impairment up to 8. You can bring it down to 0. You can reduce the carrying amount up to 0. But if the fair value is given, you cannot reduce it below 0. I think it's para 102 or 104. The criteria is given the highest of fair value less cost of disposal, value in use, or 0. So you cannot go beyond 0. Okay. So you know, the second round, whenever there is any leftover impairment because of fair value limitation, because here you can see you have 21.70, the fair value less cost to sell. So you cannot go beyond 0.3. So the actual amount of impairment loss attributable to building was higher, but you couldn't allocate it. So you will allocate that here to other assets. Am I clear? So these are, yes, we have a question, Mike. Also check if we have online questions.
Sir, I'm little bit confused about like the total we calculated 10.78 is like showing over there. That is the impairment value. Whether we have calculated this total amount of
the total impairment is 17. The total impairment loss is 17. Okay. So in the first round, we have allocated 10.78 out of it, because we could not allocate 6.22 because the fair value of the building and the license was higher. It was 18 and 21.70. So we couldn't allocate the fair share of building and license to them. So the leftover of impairment loss, which is 6.22, we have to allocate it to other assets where the fair values are lower or not given.
I'm sorry, let me repeat once again. Actually, I am confused about the total and like calculation of impairment of total value, that we have calculated the impairment value for total segment, including all these assets.
Yes.
On which basis? Like we calculated fair value less cost to sell and value in use of all like assets which are showing on screen.
Yes.
Then we compared it with.
Actually, what we do, all these assets collectively generate independent cash flows. In case of a company like, just think of Toyota or Honda, they have land, they have building, they have machines, they have computers, they have labor. Okay. So what they do, they all collectively work together and manufacture a car. Then they sell it. Okay. So once they sell it, they generate cash inflows. But what else if you have only land? Can you manufacture a car? No. If you don't have a land, how would you construct a factory over it? Where will you construct a building? Okay. So that is the reason those group of assets, they, that collectively generate cash inflows. Those cash inflows, present value of those cash inflows is calculated, and then we call it value in use.
Okay.
Okay. And obviously the outflows is there because of that related to obviously raw material expenses, other things. Then that value in use and fair value less cost of disposal, like if I want to sell that land, that factory, that machinery, everything of Honda, so what will get out of it? So in this case, if I say that by using it, I can earn 100, by selling it, I can earn 95. So what will I do being a businessman?
Higher.
I will use it, obviously, because the benefit is higher. So that is the reason I will compare that 100 with the carrying amount. Okay. So that will give me an impairment loss of 17. So that 17 loss, I know the impairment loss cannot be allocated to inventories. So I need to identify the non-current assets. And out of that, first I will allocate to goodwill. So I allocated 3 to goodwill. Then remaining assets, there we have, like if you see investment property fair value model, the fair value and carrying amount is similar, is same. Can I use any impairment? No, because I cannot reduce any asset below its fair value.
Yeah.
So in case of building, I have 21.7. If I calculate its fair share of impairment loss by dividing, by multiplying 22 with 17 and dividing by the total of the assets to which I have allocated, I have to allocate impairment. Okay, these. So its fair share is higher, but I cannot go beyond 0.3 because it will, otherwise it will go beyond below fair value. Same is the case with the license. So obviously the leftover is there. So that leftover impairment loss, I have to allocate it to other assets of the same CGU in the second round, till the time all impairment loss will be allocated.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, questions? Okay. Sajjad Hussain is asking, can you please explain the journal of entry of unconditional right to payment? See, unconditional right to payment, I have mentioned that you will debit receivable and credit contract liability. Okay. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Time passed already. Jahara Sajjad, if you include cost of disposal in the value in use, not cost of disposal, sale proceeds. Sale proceeds. Okay. See, CGU means CGU, cash generating, usually is a segment. Okay. So it is not necessarily that the company has only one segment. It may have multiple segments. So going concern assumption, obviously we look at it, but obviously the reason is that in our question, we can simply assume there are many other segments because of which company is making profit. Okay. So Ayman Afaq, why 0.3? Because we have just discussed, because the fair value is 21.7. We cannot go beyond that. That is the reason we have charged 0.3.
Sir, please scroll down the screen slightly. Sir, in case of equipment cost model, 19 was the carrying value, and in case of investment property cost model, 8 was the carrying amount. How we can differentiate between 1.62 would be allocated under the first round and 3.86 under the first round, and the remaining amount, kindly repeat it.
Let me clarify. See, it's very simple. It's what I did. If you have a calculator, just add this, okay. This we have initially allocated. So you are left with 14. So you will add all these which I have taken, okay, and you will multiply 22, okay, with the 14 and divided by the total of all the assets. So you will get the answer. Okay. If you want this Excel working, I will share with you. So you will see all the formulation. Okay.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
So this will help you to understand. So let's move ahead. Then let me give some other examples also. Like if a company has granted, a municipality has granted a transport company a license to run at least 5 bus routes in the city. Okay. And out of those 5 bus routes, one is making loss. Can I do impairment testing for that single individual route? The answer is no. Why? Because as per municipality agreement, it is mandatory for me to run 5 routes together. So if I have to do the impairment testing, I will have to do the impairment testing for the 5 routes collectively. Same way, if a mining company have a private railway structure to send it down and bring out the coal or whatever mining they are doing. So what is the cash inflow of private railway? Can we measure? No. So we have to take private railway or mine as a whole as a CGU. And then we have to allocate impairment loss to the private railway, which is being used in the mine. Okay. Also, one important thing that, okay, one thing, remember, corporate assets and goodwill. For both, we usually use the same basis of allocation, which is useful life, which is the most rational and reasonable basis. Okay. Then, like if you have 5 assets and 5 assets, for example, if you have A, B, C, D, and E, and due to fire, your asset C is damaged. It's not performing up to the mark. Okay. But collectively, they are a single CGU. Can I do the impairment testing for C individually? No. Despite the fact it's damaged, but because I am using it with the combination of other assets in the CGU, I cannot measure impairment for this asset if I decide to use this asset. But if I decide to sell this asset or dispose of this asset, yes, then I can do the impairment testing, because in that case, its recoverable amount would be the fair value less cost to dispose of. Am I clear? Cost of disposal. Are we all clear? Okay. Then quickly we rush back to the third question and third example. Here we have three CGUs. Here we will see the allocation of corporate assets and goodwill based on useful lives, which I had initially discussed. So if you see here, above, if you see here, it's a separate CGUs. So we will do impairment testing for them separately. In the previous examples, we had one CGU. So here, this impairment loss for green is this, and impairment loss for yellow is this. So how did we calculate? If you see the carrying amounts, so carrying amount of buses and assets related to those buses, then corporate assets and goodwill. So how did we allocate? So what we did, these are the useful lives given, 20, 15 and 10. We converted these useful lives into weighting. So if orange is using 1 time the corporate assets and goodwill, green would be using 2 times and yellow would be using 1.5 times. So by giving weighting, this weighting will be multiplied with carrying amounts. If you see, it's 195. So you can see it's 195. So it's here. But I multiplied 500 with 1.5. So it gave me 750. Are we all clear? So with this, now I have rational basis. So using these figures, I have allocated corporate assets and goodwill. Are we all crystal clear now? So this is the way we do allocation, and then you will simply see the same process we did previously in previous 2 examples. Carrying amounts, fair values, these are the given ones. The missing ones we don't care. We simply see that how much we can allocate. If you see this, we cannot go beyond 23.4 because fair value is 201. But for this, I allocated the complete impairment 104. So this way, I allocated in the first round and remaining one in the second round. Are we all clear? But I wish this could be the end of this, but this is not the case. In IS 36, the most tricky part, what we have discussed impairment, recoverable, value in use, fair value less cost of disposal. Then we did just learned how to do allocation and impairment testing. And we have assumed that we have reasonable and consistent basis of allocation. But what if we don't have reasonable basis of allocation? In that case, we have paragraph, I think 105, which says that so if you, this is the question. So this is a question which was, I think, of winter 2019. It actually gives you the criteria. So what does the standard says? It says that if you cannot allocate goodwill or corporate asset on reasonable or rational basis, first you need to do the impairment testing by comparing CGU's carrying amount without corporate assets and goodwill with the recoverable amount. So if you see here in step 1, he is taking carrying amount and recoverable amount. He is ignoring corporate assets, and goodwill. So first step is to do the impairment testing. So in first step, out of 3 CGUs, Karachi, Lahore, Peshawar, only Karachi has been impaired. Okay. So in previous question, all 3 questions we have seen, we have allocated goodwill and corporate assets. But in this case, this is a scenario where you cannot allocate. Then what you did? Okay, let me explain you first that in this question, there are a product development department, which is a sort of corporate asset, which can be allocated to only 2 CGUs out of 3, which can be allocated to only 2 out of 3, while head office can be allocated to all 3 CGUs. Okay. So what does standard say? It says in the first test, simply compare the carrying amount of the CGU with the recoverable amount and calculate any impairment. Then in the second test, go for the smallest CGU. So smallest CGU in this case would be the CGU with 2 CGUs where only we can allocate product development, corporate asset. Because in this question, we can allocate corporate asset to only 2 CGUs out of 3. So that is the smallest because it has 2 CGUs. So in this, if you see Karachi and Lahore, with after this 5 adjustment, then product development, we simply added. We cannot allocate it. We so simply added and compare it with the recoverable amount. So we calculated an impairment of 11. Then we know there is a head office which can be allocated to all 3 CGUs, which is bigger than the smallest. So this is the third test. So in this case, if you see Karachi, Lahore, product development, Peshawar, and head office. So in this, we have added all together and we calculated 40, the impairment loss. So now you have total impairment of 5 plus 11 plus 40, which you will allocate to the respective CGUs on the same basis. But obviously, you can note it down. It's a winter 2019 attempt. So this will help you to understand. Once you go back and see this question, you will understand the basis of allocation, because this is the last and most tricky area of IS 36. Just check that there is an online question. So this is what we all have in IS 36. Usman is asking, in power generation sector, value in use usually is less than the carrying value. The fair value cannot be easily determined. That how should we check impairment? See, for impairment, first of all, I had mentioned there must be some indicators. Okay. So indicators mean those indicators could be internal or external. Those are given in my notes also and also in the standard. So first you have to make sure whether there is an indicator. If there is an indicator for value in use, you are saying that it's usually less than the carrying amount. Okay. So remember that standard says that value in use you can calculate for the 5 years. But if you want to go beyond 5 years, like for a power plant, I think you may go for 20 or 25. So you can do that by using extrapolating, like you can using a declining growth rate for the years from 5th year to onward, and then you can calculate value in use for a longer period. It is not necessary to measure value in use only for 5 years. So in your case, you might have to go beyond 5 years and go to that extent where your value in use exceeds the carrying value practically. Okay. So then fair value less cost to sell, obviously you have a specialized nature powerhouse. That could be the case, but if you manage to calculate value in use, it will serve the purpose.
Sir, one of the triggering event that trigger to impairment is market capitalization. If market capitalization is lower than the net book value, then whether
Yeah.
this triggering event trigger to impairment based on single factor, which
See,
we can test impairment of
these
the
are
assets.
indicators. These are indicators which requires you to do the impairment testing, but it doesn't mean that you will certainly get impairment.
Sir, in this case, market capital is lower than the book value.
See, market capitalization. What is market capitalization? Total shares issued
Yes.
into market value. This is total market capitalization. So if market capitalization is less than the carrying amount, it means that investors have low trust in your company. Their trust level is low. They don't value your market according to that. Okay, that there could be possible reasons, because investor might be expecting 15% rate of return, but you might be giving 5%. But there is a possibility you might be reinvesting remaining 10% in the business to do the expansion. Okay, so market capitalization is basically the market sentiment of the secondary market. Okay,
Yes.
so that's merely an indicator which requires you, okay, if that is the case, go and do the testing. But if you are comfortable that there is no impairment, tell them there is no impairment. We are confident we will get back. Okay.
Okay, sir. And the second sir, question is that you are talking about the discount rate should be a WACC, but it's a very technical to compute WACC in case of private companies or even in Pakistan.
See,
Then
WACC
can
is
we
actually
use,
is
any
the
other
cost of
discount rate?
capital. Yeah. See,
What?
in BFD, what it says that you can always compare private company to your comparable listed company. Okay, so
Yes,
you
sir.
can look around and you can take the values of that and WACC of that, and you can adjust it for the risk and illiquidity factors. Okay, but that's a separate debate and topic.
Okay, sir.
So,
And
but obviously that can be done, and that is practically many valuers do that, because in such assignments this needs to be done.
okay. And thirdly, sir, why overhauling outflows are not taken in the value in use?
See, this is all about the original existing present condition of the assets. When you are calculating value in use, you consider assets in their present location and condition. Okay, overhaul will may enhance its useful life, its capacity, its productivity. So that is the reason, because you are measuring the value in use today. So you have to calculate value in use based on current condition and location of the asset, not the future one. Okay, that is very logical. Okay, now we come to the point where we can start IFRS 5. Are we all clear, Ji? Any doubt? Okay, Ji. So we have discussed IF 36. I hope there is everything clear. If you have any question, you may ask me later also. So IFRS 5, it also talks about non-current assets. Sorry, break. Sure. Let's take a break. We will resume at 7. Then in half an hour we can recover rest of the study. Let's take a break. Subsidiary acquired exclusively for resale. So as apparent from the definition of the standard, heading of the standard, that discontinued operation means that something which is in operation means operating segment or a subsidiary exclusively acquired for resale. On the other hand, this could be an asset or disposal group, and disposal group means assets and along with its associated liabilities. So associated liabilities are possibly could be the decommissioning liability, restoration liability, or removal liabilities, which are usually linked with the respective asset. And obviously, if you once you are done with the asset, you have to incur that liability. So that will be part of the disposal group 2. So what does the standard say? It says that if a company classifies any non-current asset or discontinued operation as held for sale, there are conditions for that. It can be classified only if it's available for immediate sale. So if a building which is under construction and which is not completed, and which will take another 6 months to be completed, and if you say that, okay, I'm classifying it as held for sale, and you are saying that I will sell it as a complete building, then it won't be, it cannot be classified as held for sale because it's not available for sale immediately, it's under construction. So the asset should be available for sale, and the second important thing is that the sale must be highly probable. So now the question comes, how would I know that it is highly probable? So for an asset to be highly probable for sale, that there is a high probability that it will be sold, there are 5 things we need to see when we need to check the classification. A management plan to sell the asset. There must be some proper documented plan to sell that asset or discontinued operation. Then the company must be actively looking for the buyers. It doesn't mean that just in the board of directors meeting, they just passed a resolution that, okay, we will be selling this segment, and or okay, we will be selling this asset. It's enough. No, they must be actively looking for the buyer. They must be approaching other buyers in the market. They must be doing some marketing, and obviously putting advertisements in the newspapers for the sale. Then the third condition is that the price must be reasonable. Like if you go for audit and they say that we have classified this asset as held for classification just for window dressing, and you ask them, okay, at what price do you want to sell? The asset might be of 5 million, and they said we are trying to sell it at 20 million. Does it make any sense? Is it a reasonable price? No. The reasonable price obviously is the fair value. So if you want to make sure that this classification has been done appropriately and accurately, then we need to make sure that the price at which they are trying to sell must be reasonable. Then expected to sell within 1 year. They should have expectation and strategy to sell it within 1 year, and the withdrawal of this plan is unlikely. Like it should be clear in management resolution that it is very highly unlikely that this asset will be again put back in production or reused. So these are the 5 things which you need to check to ensure that the classification has been done correctly. So if all these 5 things are there, then we can say the transaction of sale is highly probable, that there is a high chance that the sale will be made. So this is the initial criteria. Then for measurement, once you decide to do the classification as held for sale, there are 2 steps. In step 1, first you need to measure carrying amount at the date of classification. It means that if you have decided to sell an asset on 1st July and your financial year starts from 1st January and ends on 31st December, and you have decided to classify a fixed asset, a depreciable asset, then obviously you will have to calculate depreciation for the 6 months. Only then you can put that asset as held for sale. And if it's and you have to do the impairment testing also. Okay, and if it's a disposal group, and in disposal group there could be inventory. So if it's a disposal group, like within that you can sell current assets also as a part of the disposal group, not individually. If it would be individually, it will go under IS2. But as if it's been you are offering a group of assets in which inventory is involved, then it's okay, you can do that. So if in that case, obviously on 1st July, you will check the NRV of the inventory also. So in step 1, you will do the check the carrying amount at the date of classification. Then in step 2, you will do the classification at the reporting date, which will be lower of carrying amount or fair value less cost of disposal. So here you can see that in case of impairment, we had discussed that recoverable amount would be value in use or fair value less cost of disposal. But as we know, in this standard, we are talking about those assets which will be sold in near future. Then the relevant measurement could only be fair value less cost of disposal. So we need to compare it with the carrying amount, but this carrying amount will come from the step 1. Okay. So this carrying amount, then we will calculate carrying amount at the reporting date, and then we will book any impairment here if there would be. Then in case of any difference between carrying amount, if carrying amount suppose is 100 and fair value less cost of disposal is 80, this 20 would be an impairment loss. Remember that, because in case of an asset, if the value of carrying amount is higher than the recoverable amount or fair value less cost of disposal, this will be treated as an impairment as per IS 36, and you will allocate it the same way. You will first reduce the goodwill, and then you will allocate on pro rata basis. Okay. In case of impairment also, just remember that one point was left, that the reversal of impairment is allowed the same way write down of inventory was allowed. So you can reverse the impairment, but up to the original carrying amount, assuming that if there would have been no impairment. So what would be the carried amount? So you can reverse the impairment only to that extent, not to the original cost. Okay. So in any ways, like if a question may come that, sir, the standard says the asset is expected to be sold within 1 year. What if it doesn't get sold in 1 year, within 1 year, or it gets beyond? So standard says that if the company is trying its best to sell it and taking all the measures to sell it, and even then if it doesn't get sold, it's okay. No need to reclassify it. Keep it like that. But remember one thing, for disclosure purposes, what will you do? If you are classifying any segment or net assets or asset as a held for sale, remember both will be current assets, but you will not net it off. You will mention under current assets held for sale as a current assets, and in current liabilities related to assets held for sale. In case of disposal group, or subsidiary or operating segment. While in the P&L, you will show normal sale, cost of sale, gross profit, other expenses, net profit, tax, after tax. Then you will be mentioning profit after tax from continuing operation, and you will mention profit after tax from discontinued operation. So this would be the disclosure for the discontinued operation in the P&L. Then the management may decide later, like standard doesn't allow, doesn't restrict to do the reclassification back. Like if the company has initially decided to sell an asset or any segment, but later the circumstances changed and they decided to reuse the asset or decided to call off the sale and run the segments themselves, they can certainly do the reclassification. But if the reclassification is done, remember one thing, in case of reclassification, what will they do? They will charge all the depreciation and everything which was not charged till time it was classified as held for sale. Because once the asset is classified as held for sale, they will not charge any depreciation. So they will have to charge all the depreciation prospectively, okay, which was not charged in the previous year, and they will have to bring it to the normal carrying amounts, original carrying amounts, which should be there if the classification was initially not made. So the last and important thing is that remember, if you do the classification or reclassification, you will always restate the comparative statement of comprehensive income, but there is no change in statement of financial position. This is very important. For example, in 2022, there was an asset held for sale. You reclassified it to normal PPE. Then you will restate it and you will reverse the classification in statement of comprehensive income, and you will show it like a normal operations. Okay. So you will have to restate it. But in case of balance sheet, it was held for sale, then it will remain as held for sale. You will not restate the balance sheet, but in case of income statement, you will restate the comparative statements. Okay.
Impact on statement of comprehensive income in this case?
See, in the case of performance, actually, it's important to have an apple-to-apple comparison. But in case of balance sheet, it's not that material. So the impact is not that much in case of balance sheet, because more or less in case of disposal group or net assets, there won't be that much different. But in P&L, actually, you won't get a true picture, because the sales and all expenses will be netted off in discontinued operation. Once you will normalize or restate it, you will put back the sale figure, and then you can compare truly that what was the sale and performance, because balance sheet is usually of a specific date.
Yes, sir. A statement of comprehensive mean by you other comprehensive income or statement of profit and loss?
Both. If there is any impact related to operating segment or subsidiary in OCI, that will be restated too. Okay.
Sir, if we first time classify a asset into a non-current held for sale, whether the comparative amount will be reclassified?
Yes,
or
it will be restated. That's what I'm saying. Even it's also vice versa. It's a good question. Like even if you decide to classify any segment as held for sale, then you will restate the comparative statement also, and you will classify it as held for sale. That is what I'm saying, that you will restate in both cases.
In case of statement of profit and loss, and
even if you have classified in current year, you will restate the comparative, and you will mention the comparative as restated. Okay. You will mention discontinued operation in the comparative too.
Sir,
And
but
if in the previously it was held for sale and you reverted that decision and you reclassified it as normal, then obviously you will restate the comparative in comprehensively.
sir, why comparative is being reclassified? Because reclassification to NCA, non-current asset held for sale, is being made during the year. The decision was made during the year, but we are reclassifying the comparative.
It's just for the, it's just for comparison and consistency purpose. That is it. No other reason. Just for consistency and comparison purpose, because it is for, I told you that balance sheet is for a specific date, while P&L is for the whole period. So the performance can be measured more accurately only when you have same classifications.
Okay.
Okay, that is the only reason.
Sorry, one question more. At the time of first reclassification, if the asset is measuring under IAS 16 under cost model, and we have reclassified that asset to IFRS 5, then whether is it required to value or measure this asset at fair value before reclassifying to IFRS 5?
No. That what I mentioned, that if it was in you were using cost model, okay, and you remeasured it to fair value less cost to sell, you will revert all the adjustments and you will bring it back to original carrying amount by making all the adjustment which should be there, like depreciation and any other thing. Okay, so you will revert all the adjustment you had made during classification, and you will take it back to the original position where it should be.
So, sir, my question is, at the first time when we reclassify an asset which is measuring under IAS 16 under cost model, and now I have decided to reclassify to IFRS 5, whether this asset would be reclassified at carrying amount or it will be first valued at fair value? And
Carrying amount. See what I am saying. See, you cannot classify it under PPE initially. It is if you have purchased an asset for production, for admin purpose, for selling purposes, obviously it will go under PPE IAS 16.
Yes.
Okay. Then you can classify it as held for sale, and you can revert it back to PPE. Okay. So this you can do, but you cannot classify PPE first. You cannot call it classification.
No. One asset I am already using. I am using for a piece of land or a piece of building. First, it is measuring under cost model under IAS 16. Now I have intention to realize it through sale, and I want to reclassify to IFRS 5. Whether it should be reclassified at carrying amount?
It will be at carrying amount, but it will be compared with fair value less cost to sell, and you will take lower of what carrying amount or fair value less cost of disposal. Its measurement is lower of carrying amount or fair value less cost of disposal. So if you have classified any asset as held for sale, you will compare the carrying amount with the fair value less cost of disposal. Whichever is lower, you will take that.
At the time of first reclassification. At the time of first reclassification.
At the date of classification, you will simply calculate the carrying amount. I had told you that if you will classify it on 1st July, you will calculate depreciation for 6 months. Okay. That will give you the carrying amount. Then on 31st December, you will charge depreciation for the next 6 months. Then that carrying amount will be compared with fair value less cost to sell.
Whether it is required to measure it at fair value at 1st July?
No.
Compare carrying amount and fair value, and whichever is lower, at that amount we will reclassify to IFRS 5.
No, once you will classify in the first step, you will calculate the carrying amount, then you will remeasure at reporting date, I think. Let me check. No, sorry, in initial recognition at both, you are right. At initial and subsequent measurement, we will compare carrying amount with the fair value less cost of disposal. Yes, both at the initial and subsequent. So at the date of reclassification, you will compare carrying amount with the fair value less cost of disposal, and then at the reporting date again, you will do the comparison.
Okay. So it means that if there is a fair value is greater than the carrying amount, then the surplus will be classified as a OCI item.
No. If a fair value is higher, you will keep it at the carrying amount. But if carrying amount is higher than fair value, then there is an impairment. It's not a revaluation model. Okay, it's simply lower of carrying amount or fair value less cost of disposal. Okay. Okay, let's move to IS 41, the last one. This is the agriculture. It's a small standard. It deals with biological assets. Biological assets means living, plant, and animal. So agriculture, now we know there is corporate farming and people are producing these cows, buffaloes, goats under farming, and obviously they have now orchards of orange, mangoes, everything, bananas. So with the introduction of corporate farming, this standard is of much more relevancy. It's the only standard actually which allows to measure biological asset on initial and subsequent measurement at fair value less cost to sell. So biological asset is the living animal, plant, and animal. So if you talk about like wheat crop, cotton crop, or other trees which obviously generate flowers or fruits over a period of time, so there is a difference. The standard talks about bearer plant, which we need to understand. All the plants which have more than 1 year of useful life, like mangoes, orange, banana, dates, all these trees, their useful life is more than 1 year. So standard says all the plants which regenerate fruits over a period of year for more than 1 year, those plants will be called bearer plants, and they will be treated under IS 16, not under IS 41. So it means we are left with only the crops, which we have to harvest completely. We have to sow them again, and we have to harvest again and again in every season. Okay, so that's the basic difference which we need to understand. So just like animals, so if you have a in case of cow, you have a milk. So that is actually you need to understand that for a cow, there would be a regeneration. Okay, for a plant, we have a regeneration, like we can use its seeds to regenerate the new crop. Okay, the same way the animals regenerate itself. So what happens that standard says that whenever there will be a regeneration, there will be a gain. Why? You will book a biological asset and you will book a gain at fair value less cost to sell in case of regeneration. But interestingly, whenever you will acquire a biological asset, you will incur a loss. Because whenever you will buy a buffalo, for example, so there would be a biological asset and you have paid, suppose, 5 lakh for that, and you know you have to measure it initially at fair value less cost to sell. So its fair value is 5 lakh, but you have to pay 10,000 as a cost to sell. So obviously then you will be recognizing it at 490,000. So less 10,000 loss will go into P&L. Okay. So standards allow you to apply cost model only and only if you are unable to measure fair value. If you are unable to measure fair value, only you can then apply cost model, in which you can charge depreciation and amortization, But by the time you will get the fair value, you will again restart, you will start using fair value less cost to sell model. Am I clear? So the gain or loss will go into P&L. So in this case also, for the biological asset, usually we have seen that government gives grants to the companies. In that case, if the grant is unconditional, so you will book the grant into P&L directly. In case it's unconditional, like government wants to promote fish farming, so they say that, okay, anyone who wants to do fish farming, we will give the fishes initially eggs for free. Okay. So if they give that, so you will book those biological assets debit, and you will book all the grants into gain in P&L. But if there is a condition that, okay, I will give you the money, but you will, the government will give you the money, but you have to buy fish eggs yourself, and you have to run that business for at least 5 years. So you will book that amount as bank debit, okay, and then you will book a deferred income, and you will amortize it over a period of 5 years. Okay, by the time you meet the condition, you will recognize it like that. So this is all we have for today. I think that's fair enough and good enough to digest. Just you need to under the basic criteria and concept of agriculture, that it's been measured under fair value method, and both on the initial and subsequent measurement.
Sir, fruit generating trees are classified under IAS 16, but you are saying buffaloes are would be treated under IAS
41.
But it's
See,
like also a plant and generate biological asset, mean milk and so on. Why it's not fall
see,
under
bearer
IAS?
plants usually have much longer life. They live for 20, 25 years. Did you ever see any mango tree dying or date tree dying? Actually, they have very long life.
Yes.
15, 20, while the animals obviously, because of Eid al-Azha, you obviously use them as a qurbani. So obviously their life is very limited. And for cows and buffaloes, the life cycle is not that much.
Okay.
And because of the regeneration, the calf and other like small goats, baby goats, we know that the regeneration process is very frequent. So for that reason, actually, they have been kept in the IS 41.
Okay, sir.
But for the trees, obviously, the fruits, they will be treated under IS 41.
16.
No, trees only under 16.
Fruits under 41.
Yeah, because that's the at the harvest stage. Because tree, if you obviously using fertilizer, labor, okay, to keep them safe and keep them healthy. So that investment, the purchase price and all that cost will be capitalized, and you will depreciate that cost over the life of the tree. Okay.
Sir, one question from IFRS 5 again. So you were asking that if the depreciation has no, if we reclassify again, the decision was changed to reclassify the asset to property, plant, equipment, and the depreciation is under provided, shortfall in the previous year.
When you classify an asset as held for sale, you stop charging depreciation. Okay, you stop charging depreciation. So if you reclassify it as PP, then you will charge the depreciation for the whole period for which you didn't charge it.
The period for which the depreciation undercharged prospectively.
Yeah, but you will charge it for in the current year. The whole depreciation will be charged in the current year, because in the previous year you understated the the expenses because you didn't charge the depreciation.
Okay, sir.
So it's a penalty for you that you will charge all the depreciation now because you change your decision.
Yes. So you are also saying that profit and loss or statement of comprehensive income will be restated. In that case, if I will restate the statement of profit and loss, then the depreciation will be charged in the last year, and also the carrying value of property plant will also reduce. It will be inconsistent to charge all the depreciation prospectively.
See, that is the presentation of this discontinued operation. Like you had mentioned the discontinued operation in the previous year, and now you have changed it to continuing operation.
Yes.
So you will change it to continuing operation. No, in that case, actually, the depreciation will be charged prospectively because that is due to change in circumstances. You change your decision, so that will fall under IS 8. Okay, but that restatement requirement is specifically required by IFRS 5. Okay, but it is in fact the change in accounting estimate, because why did you reclassify the asset? Because the circumstances have changed.
Yes.
Okay. So
Okay, sir.
when you to make a change due to circumstantial changes, it becomes change in accounting estimate as per IS 8. So it's charged prospectively.
In that case, statement of profit and loss will not be restated. In this case,
No, you will mention as a continuing operations. You will simply put sale back into sale and expenses in respective accounts. Okay, but you will take it out from discontinued operation.
okay.
Okay, but it's been charged prospectively. It's not retrospectively.
Retrospectively.
Okay.
Okay, sir. And the last question is that from IAS 2 inventory, impairment loss. Whether the impairment loss should be reclassified as a cost of sale or other operating expenses, because it does not represent the sale activity.
See, actually, in IS2, impairment is known as write down. So write down is charged to cost of sale. So any reversal related to inventory will go into cost of sale also.
But sir, it does not represent the sale activity. Then why we should
See,
classify
when
it
there
as cost of
was
sale?
when it was write down, where did you charge it? You charge it to cost of sale. In case of write down,
Yes.
even though you didn't sell that inventory, but you charge that write down to cost of sales, because anything related to inventory, whether is negative or positive, it will go to cost of
Cost of
sales.
sale. Okay.
That is the logic, because it is related to inventory. Like for example, for fixed assets, why do you charge impairment to fixed assets? Because it's related to fixed asset. Why don't you charge it elsewhere in the accounts? So if anything related to inventory, it will go into same bucket.
Sale. Okay, sir. And lastly, if I have sold, dispose of the subsidiary, and at the reporting date, there is no subsidiary of the company, whether the partial results
will be
of
shown
the
as
company,
discontinued operation. They will be shown as.
and because at the reporting there is no subsidiary, and even the accounts will be consolidated in this case.
No. If you don't have any other subsidiary, then you will not do the consolidation. But in your individual accounts, you will show the results of subsidiary, that disposal of gain or loss on disposal of subsidiary. But if you have any other subsidiary, then in consolidated accounts, you will show the discontinued operation.
But the fact is that the subsidiary remained for a period of time, for a partial period of time during the year.
IFRS 10 only applies if you have a subsidiary at the reporting date. So if you don't have, you have disposed of it, you cannot do consolidation. You are not required to do that.
Even if I already have not reclassified as a disposal group, then it can also be treated as
see,
under
if
IFRS
you are
5.
not doing consolidation, then this reporting requirement doesn't apply to you at all. Am I clear?
Okay.
So you don't have any other subsidiary, and the only subsidiary you had, you have disposed of it. So you are not supposed to prepare, because you are no more a parent. So if you are no more a parent, IFRS 10 doesn't apply to you, and you will not consolidate. So IFRS 5 disclosure requirements for consolidated will not apply to you. Okay. So for individual, you will simply show the disposal of investment as subsidiary and related gain and loss in the P&L.
Gain and loss as a discontinued operation.
No. See, this discontinued operation for subsidiary, you will show only in consolidated financial statements.
Okay.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Yes, but if you have a segment like in Nestle, you have dairy segment, you have water segment, you have juice segment. So if you have disposed water segment, yes, that will be disclosed as discontinued operation.
Yes.
Clear?
Okay.
So operating segment, yes, that will be shown as discontinued operation in the individual financial statements. But in case of subsidiary, you will make that disclosure only in consolidated, not in individual.
Okay, sir.
Okay.
Okay, sir. If a subsidiary is acquired during the year first time, then while consolidating, the comparative amounts will also be consolidated for the purpose of comparison?
No, for consolidation, it's not required. I told you that it is a specific requirement of IFRS 5 to do the restatement of statement of comprehensive income, despite the fact it is a restatement that is a change in accounting estimate due to circumstantial things. But in consolidation, there is no such requirement. You will do the consolidation for the year in which you acquired the subsidiary. You will not do from that because previously you didn't have the control.
Yes.
Why would you do the consolidation?
Yes, for the purpose of comparison.
No.
Okay.
In consolidation, actually, it's a single economic entity concept. So once you have control, subsidiary starts from that day once you get the control. So you have to do the reporting accordingly. Previously, hypothetically, you just can't do anything because you were not in control.
Yes.
So that is why a parent has to present two sets of financial statements. One is individual, which is usually after consolidation, which is separate financial statement as per IAS 27.
Yes.
So that is that consistency you will see there in individual and separate. But in consolidation, you don't need any consistency.
Okay, sir. Sir, last question. If I have an associate company based on common director, I have less than 20% shareholding, whether the common director is triggered to equity method?
Yes. See, standard asks for control. Control not necessarily comes from more than 50% share. Okay. So if you can show the power to control or control over the subsidiary through contract, then you will do the consolidation. The same way, if you can manage to show the significant influence over the associate. Yes.
Sir, if there are 7 directors and 1 director is common, can this single director influence the decision of others?
Usually, actually, that is why 20% threshold has been given in the Standard and Companies Act. But obviously, we need to see 7, like the directorship should also be 20% or more than, like I would say if you have 2 directors, it would be more than 20%. Then you can say that if you have 2 common directors, there is a significant influence.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
Okay, anyone? For any online question? Okay, so what would be the new bond? See, I told you that in case of regeneration, it will be a gain. You will debit the biological asset and credit the gain in P&L. Okay. Thank you very much.